Good morning, karibu sana to the Morning Cafe this lovely Wednesday, the 9th of October 2024, the year of the Lord. Karibu sana, my name is Freddie Ndimuli. Today we start with a special Bible verse. This is the official Twitter account or X account of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. He describes himself as husband, father, deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. The latest tweets on this account 7 hours ago. We start with 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 18. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. The next one, Jeremiah 30 verse 19. From them will come songs of thanksgiving and the sound of rejoicing. I will add to their numbers, and they will not be decreased. I will bring them honor, and they will not be disdained. And he ends it saying, it is well. Well, those are the words of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who only 7 hours ago was successfully impeached by the National Assembly. 281 members of the House voted in support of the impeachment. 44 voted no, with one abstention. It is the main headline on the front page of the Standard today. One word: impeached. So yes, this will make the biggest discussion today with my panelists later on State of the Nation. Do stand by for that conversation. Today we'll be having Wakili Silas Akiro, Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu Town, Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, and Senator Danson Mungatana of Tana River County. So let's take a look at the quick headlines this morning on the dailies. End of the road, they ask a question. This is a star. 281 lawmakers vote to kick out DP in a first under 2010 constitution. It is the first time ever, and we'll be looking at this. Of course, it now moves to the Senate. The fall of a tribal chief. That's a headline on the front page of the People Daily. A bit harsh, but yes, it is a historic impeachment motion and occupies most of the page on the People Daily this morning. Impeached, I had mentioned, that's the Standard. About 3/4 of the front page dedicated to this news, the Deputy President's impeachment in the National Assembly. We'll be back to take a look at that and a lot more. How Gachagua was cornered is a headline on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Yes, also more than 3/4 of the front page of this paper also dedicated to the news from Parliament. They sat up until late, about 10 p.m. to ensure that the vote went through. Wabunge wa mrarua ndio kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Anasema naibu rais ajitetea vikali, akidai alifuata nyayo za bosi wake Rais Ruto kuwakemea watumishi waliopotoka. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Magazeti mengine, Business Daily, masuala ya biashara. Kenya makes fresh bid to end power sales in dollars, and this is a big conversation as well. They say that foreign currency billing has been blamed for high electricity costs. We also do have an image of the Deputy President on the front page of this paper when he arrived in Parliament to defend himself against the impeachment motion. So what happens next? Let's cross over to Uganda for now. We'll be back to take a look at the local dailies in depth in a short while. In Uganda, they are celebrating the 62nd independence anniversary. So they say 62 from 1962. So the headline reads, Uganda since 62. And I love the play of words. A lot of pictures from back in 1962 when Milton Obote was sworn in as president, and what is happening now with the latest president. Some of the developments that this country has experienced over the 62 years. As Ugandans from Kampala to Karamoja, from the Rwenzori Ranges to the Nile's banks and to West Nile commemorate Independence Day, many will sit and reflect on what this really means across political, economic and social spheres. But outstanding are the memories from senior citizens who stayed up late into the night in 1962 to witness the new dawn. 65 pages, 65 of special coverage plus a supplement. When did you last see a 65-page daily in Kenya? That's what the Daily Monitor has done, today being the Independence Day. 62nd Independence Day of Uganda, 62 from 1962. I like the play of words, and it's a very neat front page, as always, the Daily Monitor. Cross over to the New Vision. Well, they also give over 90 pages of special independence coverage, 40 people to get medals, 62 big events since 1962. So yes, it is up there. But 90 pages. They have those many stories to talk about in 62 years. In Kenya, I think we have more stories, but anyway, it is their day. However, the big news on the front page of the New Vision, they talk about finance. Okay, is 129 billion Ugandan shillings for districts and cities. Funds to be built to build schools and upgrade health centers. Some positive news there. And we have also a picture there of Museveni hosting Central African Republic President. Kuna jina ingine ngumu sana hapo anaitwa Change Tudara. Yes, that's on the front page of the New Vision. We cross over to Tanzania. Gazeti la Habari Leo mepewa kipaumbele habari hii, miradi ya ubia usafirishaji umeme yanukia. Nafikiri wanaongea kuhusu umeme. Hata wewe umeona ni umeme wameongelea na usafirishaji wa umeme. Ingine miradi ya ubia yanukia, something is building up slowly. And we're still trying to learn the Tanzanian Swahili. Wakuu wa taasisi za umma wapewa maagizo 9. Ni habari nyingine pale. Na wamejaribu kusafisha ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili. Jana ilikuwa imejaa hadithi kama 500 hivi, lakini wamepunguza. Leo tuko na hadithi kama 7-10 hivi. So tunawapa kongole waandishi wa habari katika Habari Leo. Kwingineko gazeti lingine kule Tanzania Daily News wana habari zote za Tanzania na kwingineko kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, lakini tutajaribu tuhesabu kama 3 hivi. Embrace good governance, that's the main story there on the Daily News. They have so many stories on the front page and we struggle sometimes to find what's a big story here. Chief Secretary Dr. Moses Kisluka yesterday told presidential appointees to ensure they make good use of the trust placed in them, serve the public diligently and observe principles of good governance. The other big story, state commits to further improving social services. That's on the front page of the Daily News. So these are just some of the stories that Tanzanians are talking about today. Across in Uganda, it is Independence Day, 62 years of independence. In Tanzania, a lot of politics and development stories. So we'll be back to take a look at some of the local dailies in depth later on. Let's take a look at the weather overview this morning across the country. We start off in Nyeri yesterday, and we saw a report where one of our reporters, William Moige, and his cameraman were harassed by police who descended on Karatina, specifically Madeira, the home base of the impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Immediately after the vote by the National Assembly, and crew was there trying to get some of the reactions from members of that area, citizens and residents of Madeira constituency, and they had some encounter, not very nice encounter with the police, and they are safe, and we do hope that matters will improve. So we go to Nyeri and take a look at the weather situation. It's a bit chilly this morning. There are very little to smile about. 14 degrees Celsius. It promises to get as high as 23 degrees, but that's into the afternoon. Chances of rainfall today, very low, 0.8 millimeters of rain. Probably a few drizzles in the morning, showers, drizzling all the way till afternoon. So it promises to be a rather dull day across Nyeri. In Kibwezi, it's a bit different, a bit hotter, 19 degrees Celsius this morning. Sunny intervals plus cloud cover all the way till the afternoon. Highs of 31 degrees in Kibwezi. So quite warm weather in Kibwezi this morning. 19 to 31 degrees. Chances of rainfall today, 0 millimeters of rain. Take a look at Narok. 13 degrees Celsius this morning. Promises to get as high as 26 degrees. Sunny intervals throughout the day. Also, no chance of rain today in Narok. Let's take a look at Diani, holiday weather. And in Diani, 24 degrees as we speak, feels like 27. Promises to get as high as 28 degrees. But yes, some drizzles all the way from morning till afternoon. Yes, 1.5 millimeters of rain expected today. So holiday weather, but with a bit of showers throughout the day. So finally, let's come back to Nairobi City in the sun, and it feels like 16 degrees this morning. Chances of rain, just a bit of drizzling between 10 a.m. and that's mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Highs of 27 degrees later in the afternoon today. So comfortable weather, not so bad. Chances of rain, 0.0 milliliters. So even the drizzling will not be that much to be felt. So that's the weather situation today. And before we get back to the dailies, let's take a look at today in history. Today in history, 9th October 1940. The U.S. Navy began its first construction of a nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Nautilus, marking a significant advancement in naval technology. Okay, fine. Let's now come back and take a look at the local dailies in depth. We start off with the Star newspaper this morning. End of the road. It's a question there on the front page of the Star. They say this is history. 281 lawmakers vote to kick out DP in a first under 2010 constitution. If Gachagua is impeached, he will cease to hold office, marking a pivotal moment in Ruto's administration. There's more stories on pages 4 and 5. And they say in a historic move, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua became the first deputy president to be impeached last night, marking a significant moment in Kenya's political landscape. An overwhelming majority of 281 members of parliament voted in favor of the motion to remove him, while only 44 opposed it. So yes, quite a historic moment before the National Assembly yesterday. So what happens next? Within 2 days after that motion was voted for overwhelmingly by the National Assembly, this will be communicated to the Senate, and then the Senate will take it up, and within the next 7 days, they will conduct their trial and eventually vote on the impeachment motion. If it goes the same way as the National Assembly, then Rigathi Gachagua will have been successfully impeached as deputy president, and he will immediately cease to be the deputy president. He may move to court after that, but once the Senate takes a vote on the matter, that will be the end. That's the main story, and it's the main story on all the front pages. Today we'll be looking at that. But other quick highlights on the front page of this paper. 11 constituencies reported 100% support for Gachagua ouster. Now, this is a report that members of parliament brought to the House with regard to the public participation that was conducted on Friday and Saturday last week. And according to the report presented in parliament, 11 constituencies reported 100% support for Gachagua's ouster. Unakubaliana na hayo maneno? That is on page 6 of the Star. So apparently Kenyans said, yes, impeach the deputy president. Other highlights back on the front page. Big win as judges rejected by Uhuru in 2019 awarded 126 million shillings for rights violation, and how an award injected energy into Abdallah's passionate activism. Okech Kendo has written a column inside the Star today, and he says Rigathi justified to cry facing Mount Kenya. That's the Standard this morning. Let's take a look at the People Daily. Same story on the People Daily. But they say this is a fall of a tribal chief. Historic impeachment motion. Gachagua's fate now lies with the Senate. In the Senate, as he stares at political ignominy after lawmakers vote to keep kicking him out of office. The pages 4 and 5 carry this story. So they move on from, okay, fine, what happened yesterday? It's what happens next. And yes, correctly, it moves to the Senate, and within the next 2 days, actually less than 2 days, the Senate should be appraised of this matter or the vote in the National Assembly, and they take over the case for the next 1 week or so. So in the next 1 week or so, 7 days, we may not be having a deputy president. Another story given prominence, and People Daily have really stuck with this story about the rot in sports ministry over AFCON billions. It is still there on the front page today. The main story is on Newsbeat, page 7, continuing revelations of what happened with money set aside for the building and construction of sports stadia and other sports facilities that apparently just disappeared. Ingonga defends himself on Tana Athi Boss case. That's the ODPP. Another interesting story, and you realize if you come from Uganda and you come to Kenya, they're just negative stories on the front page. Rot in sports, fall of a tribal chief, and even this one here, how Kenyans lost 6.6 billion shillings in edible oil scandal. And sometimes it's painful being Kenyan because there's nothing positive. There's nothing to smile about. Yeah? Do you see anything to smile about? On the Standard today, impeached, one word. I love such a headline. That is a big story. Nothing else to add. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was last night overwhelmingly impeached by the National Assembly in a historic motion despite his spirited defense and that of his closest allies on the floor of the House. And it is now up to the Senate to save or send him home. And this coverage is on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So if you need in-depth analysis on what happens next to the Deputy President, the Standard has you covered. Final word by the Deputy President after he finished his defense in the National Assembly said, and I quote, "Search your conscience and decide if guilty of any of these allegations or if I am merely undergoing a political process. If you find there are no grounds, please make the right decision." Well, I don't think they were listening to him. And they give a breakdown of how people voted. 281 voted yes, 44 voted no, and there was one abstention. Quite a number of MPs also stayed away from the House yesterday, meaning that their votes did not count. And they list a few of those highlights there. Inside, Gachagua makes spirited defense in House. MP accuses DP of money laundering and graft. Public participation reveals disparities. Drama as political daggers drawn. Full list of how MPs voted in motion. So yes, if you want to find out how your MP voted on this, they've given you the list inside the Standard. Impeachment not priority, say clergy, but well, we are beyond that already. So this occupies more about 80% of the front page of the Standard, but they've still left some space for some quick highlights. One of them is that judges left out by Uhuru have been awarded 126 million. You remember, there's some 6 judges that President Uhuru Kenyatta had delayed from 2019 to appoint despite their approval by the JSC. And they were not appointed up until President William Ruto took oath of office, and on the same day he announced their appointments. Now they've been awarded 126 million shillings. So they get about 21 million shillings each. Wow, not bad. Matters business, airlines join bid to block Adani deal. The Kenya Association of Air Operators, a lobby group representing local carriers, has opposed the handing over of Kenya's premier airport JKIA to Adani, saying any such engagement with a private operator should be done through competitive bidding. That story is on page 20. So yes, Matters Adani is still making it to the front pages. Other quick highlights, TSC recruitment deadline extended and national alert over Marburg virus. And that's the Standard today. Daily Nation, impeached how Gachagua was cornered. On his way out, they ask, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's fate now lies with the Senate or the courts after President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga yesterday whipped their members in the National Assembly to vote for the impeachment motion against the DP. And it's interesting that the Daily Nation has dragged the names of the president and the former prime minister to this debate. The Daily Nation has also given this story quite some coverage. Pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. Some 8 pages to this story. Other quick highlights on the front page, of course, that story about the judges getting 126 million shillings payout. Features there on the top strip. Grand heist. KNTC admits that Kenyans lost 6.6 billion shillings in cooking oil scam. Mutadu? That's the question. Mutafanya nini? Unaona mutafanya nini? 6.6 billion shillings has gone. Meanwhile, the school feeding program was worth about 4.9 billion shillings and it was being scrapped off because there's no money. But we lost this in cooking oil scam. Hallelujah. Quick highlights there. Patients still paying cash for services as SHIF chaos persists. That's the other story on the Daily Nation. Tusonge mbele sasa. Wabunge wa Mrarua ni habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Anasema naibu rais ajitetea vikali, akidai alifuata nyayo za bosi wake Rais Ruto kuwakemea watumishi waliopotoka. Wabunge wengi jana walimshambulia vikali naibu rais Rigathi Gachagua walipojadili hoja ya kumtimua afisini, wakisema mashtaka 11 dhidi yake yana mashiko. Waliokubaliana na hoja hiyo ni washirika wa rais William Ruto katika chama cha United Democratic Alliance na wale wa chama cha Orange Democratic Movement cha aliyekuwa waziri mkuu Raila Odinga. Na habari kamili ni kwenye ukurasa wa pili, na ni kama vile gazeti la Nation nasema Rais Ruto na aliyekuwa waziri mkuu Raila Odinga walihusika katika hoja hii ya kumtimua afisini naibu wa rais Rigathi Gachagua. Lakini bado ataenda kwenye seneti na ikibidi aende kotini, lakini hii ni kama imeenda. Vidokezo zaidi hapa chini kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, anasema wakili Morara akamatwa tena na polisi. Alinaswa jijini Nairobi kuhusiana na vurugu zilizozuka Bomas of Kenya Ijumaa. Kwingineko, wataalamu watoa onyo kuhusu soda. Sikiza hiyo, wataalamu watoa onyo kuhusu soda. Wataalamu wa lishe wasema kinywaji hicho kinaweza kusababisha madhara ya kiafya. Sio mimi nimesema, ni gazeti hili la Taifa Leo ukurasa wa 4. Tafuta gazeti hili ujisomee mwenyewe. Wanasema soda itadhuru afya yako. Masuala ya Marekani pale, kumbuka uchaguzi wa urais Marekani unaendelea kukaribia. Tarehe 5 mwezi wa 11 Novemba ndio wanaenda kwenye debe. Meanwhile, Trump adai wahamiaji ni wahalifu sugu. Kwa pale chini kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Pale juu, majaji 6 kuvuna kwa kudunishwa, majaji kulipwa milioni 126 kwa kutoteuliwa na Rais Kenyatta. Pesa sio mbaya. Na masuala ya biashara sasa, tumalizie hapa Business Daily. Kenya makes fresh bid to end power sales in dollars. They say Wandai, who's an energy CS, says Kenya Power is mulling talks with IPPs. These independent power producers who've been charging, or rather the power they produce, they sell to Kenya Power, which is the main distributor, but they sell it at a dollar rate. So that dollar rate converted back to the Kenya shilling is what ends up in your power bills. So foreign currency billing blamed for high electricity costs. Kenya is making another bid to stop billing for wholesale power in US dollars and euros in an effort to lower electricity prices for homes and ease Kenya Power's foreign exchange losses. That's a big story there on the front page of the Business Daily. It has been a story that has continued for quite a while. The government really trying to change or convert some of these deals that were signed years ago, whereby independent power producers agreed with Kenya Power, I don't know who agreed with them, that they will be selling their power to Kenya Power Company using the dollar and euros, but when it's sold to Kenyans, munalipa kwa shilingi. So depending on how the Kenyan shilling is faring against foreign currencies, wewe ndo unabeba hiyo mzigo kama Mkenya wa kawaida. Meanwhile, ile pesa ya mafuta, cooking oil, 6.6 billion shillings imepotea. Mimi nakwambia, I swear, tutahamia Uganda. CBK cuts main lending rate by biggest margin since COVID-19. Now, this is a positive story on the front page of the Business Daily. Listen to this. The Central Bank of Kenya has cut the benchmark interest rate by the largest margin since the start of COVID-19 economic hardships in March of 2020, signaling relief for borrowers plagued by costly loans. So if you have a loan with banks, I'm sure you may have noticed that your interest rates jumped by some, even by as high as 10%. Yeah, but now the CBK Monetary Policy Committee yesterday cut the key lending rate by 0.75% or 75 basis points. That is from 12.75% to 12.0% after inflation dropped to its lowest level in over a decade. How will this translate to how much you're repaying your loan or your bank loan? You need to find out. It may look small, but you could save some shillings, some money in your pocket. Wengine wakipita na ile 6.6 billion ya cooking oil, si wakuachie shilingi 2-3 kwa mfuko, ama unatakaje? Other quick highlights on the front page of the Business Daily on the ticker. Geothermal power supply on grid dips, hydropower surges. Elsewhere, SHA reverts to manual claims on system glitch. Listen to this. The Social Health Authority, which was only launched last week, rolled out, has resorted to manually filled out claim forms by healthcare providers after its digital claims management system suffered a series of setbacks. That is just one system. The other one that they're working on is about worth 104 billion shillings. It's a new system. But, well, this one has failed. Anyway, East Africa corporate deals deep on low Kenya activity, and finally cashed in fixed deposit accounts hits 2 trillion Kenya shillings. Way, I'm telling you. These are just some of the... Tuangalie cartoon hapa, hakuna kitu ingine. Meanwhile, in Uganda, they're just celebrating 62 years. Anyway. Positive stories there. Positive stories on regional papers. Tukirudi kwetu, tuangalie cartoon. So yes, the cartoon on the Standard talks about what happened in Parliament yesterday, but not really. This gentleman here, let me not call him gentle, he doesn't look, his stomach is not that gentle. It's actually written Graft Incorporated. So these are the lords of graft, the lords of corruption. He's carrying a lute on his back, and he's passing by the National Assembly or the Houses of Parliament, and he's saying, I celebrate you, waheshimiwa. You are the backbone of my business. Happy Customer Service Week to you all. Remember, this is it's the Customer Service Week, so most companies are going out and thanking their clients and thanking them for the kind of business they bring to their businesses. So yes, Graft Incorporated, according to this cartoon, says that its biggest customers come or reside in this house. You know them. Now, amekuwa, you are the backbone of my business. Happy Customer Service Week to you all. That's a cartoon on the Standard. Sio mimi nimesema, msianze kuniingilia. On the Daily Nation, now this one at least, we still have the Parliament building there and the Deputy President. So this one talks about the impeachment process yesterday, impeachment motion, and the Deputy President is just about to be crushed by this roller. Ile inaitwa roller nini, ile inafinyanga lami. So iko karibu kufinya huyo Deputy President pale. Remember, everything is just within the Houses of Parliament. Yes, moves from the National Assembly, where has already been voted for overwhelmingly. His impeachment is done. So it moves to the Senate, still within Parliament buildings. The numbers are much lower there. He only needs 17 senators to save him in the Senate out of the 47 senators who have a vote, elected senators. Will he be saved? So it could be crushed. Meanwhile, kunatoka moshi pale. Black smoke. He may have expected a white smoke. Unfortunate for him. But he still has the option of moving to court after that. That's the cartoon on the Daily Nation. And finally, on the People Daily. And we do have a caricature of the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, standing there like Moses of old when he parted the Red Sea. This time he's not parting the Red Sea, but he's parting the two gentlemen, Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President, and William Ruto. So according to Stano, who's a cartoonist at the People Daily, he believes that the main reason why these two gentlemen cannot see eye to eye and now the Deputy President is being impeached is because of the entry into government through the broad-based government of this gentleman, Raila Odinga. Do you agree with this assessment that Raila Odinga is a problem in that relationship? That's a cartoon on the People Daily this morning. And yes, after the break on State of the Nation, we'll be having these four gentlemen for this discussion. And I'd like you to stand by for more. Wakili Silas Akiro, advocate of the High Court, Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu Town, Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, and Danson Mungatana, the Senator for Tana River County. Of course, the big story today has to do with the impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in the National Assembly. What happens next, and what could be the possible repercussions of this unprecedented move? That and a lot more after the break. Remember, you can always be part of this conversation through our online channels. On X at TV47 News, on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. My X handle is at Fred Indemuli. Don't go away.
Hey there, friends! Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Hey there, friends! Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. My name is Fred Indemuli. Time to take a look at the big headlines today. And of course, all of them have a lot to do with the impeachment of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, before the National Assembly yesterday night. It is a big story on the front page of the Star. They ask, end of the road. It is a question, not a declaration. How Gachagua was cornered is a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. Impeached, one-word headline on the Standard. Other dailies too have the same. We do have, is it Taifa Leo? Taifa Leo anasema wabunge wa mrarua. Ndio habari kuu pale. On the People Daily, they go with the fall of a tribal chief. Those are just some of the headlines this morning. Privileged to have in studio for this conversation Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu Town constituency. Bwana Njomo, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
It's been a while. It's good to have you back in studio.
Thank you so much, Bwana Fred.
It is a historic moment for the country. It has never happened before. The impeachment of a deputy president, fine. Even before that, it was only a censure motion against a vice president. In the new constitution dispensation, this is unprecedented. And whichever way it goes, this will definitely set a precedent in as far as checking or testing our constitution. What is your general feeling about what happened yesterday at the National Assembly?
Well, I would say it is unprecedented in the form that it took this time round. But remember, this is the fourth president to be ousted from his position. I was not old enough to understand those days, but if you read history, you'll find that Jaramogi Oginga Odinga served as vice president only, I think, for 3 years. And in 1966, he, I think, was ousted or resigned when there was a meeting that was held in Rimuru. Actually, that was what was called Rimuru 1, where KANU devolved, rather distributed its position of vice chairmanship or vice president to, I think, 6 or a certain number of vice president, which diluted the powers of the vice president. So I think he didn't feel comfortable with that and he resigned. So in those days, powers, if that was some kind of impeachment, and he was ousted. Then came in another gentleman called, why is the name running away? Murumbi, who was the second vice president. Murumbi, if you read history, he was appointed as vice president in May. And in July, he had written a letter of resignation because he said there were some people who were surrounding Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, very powerful people, who were threatening his life. And he was the same circumstances with our current deputy president. He had just been elected as a member of parliament. He did not have political experience. He was a son of a Maasai mother and an Indian father. He had spent about 16 years in India in school and had just come back, so had not comprehended well the politics of Kenya. And then he finds himself in a very key position, just like our current deputy president. He just got into parliament in 2017, was elected as a member of parliament, so he had only 5 years political experience. Prior to that, what he had was administrative experience, and administrative experience is completely different from the political experience. So we can say he was not very experienced in terms of politics. After him, came Moi, who really survived, but when President Moi became president, he appointed Kibaki, who was followed by Saitoti. Professor Saitoti, remember he lost his job one time on a roadside declaration by President Moi. So President Moi did his own impeachment because that was, he had the constitutional powers to do so then. So Saitoti was the third person to lose the position of vice president. He stayed for 1 year, just as a member of parliament. Then he was reappointed again as a vice president. And now we have Rigathi Gachagua, who is almost losing his position as deputy president through impeachment. And the impeachment is the only avenue there is today to to sack the deputy president.
Yes. And many, now that you've gone back to history, a lot has been compared to, a lot of what is happening now has been compared to what happened back in the day when Josephat Karanja was vice president.
Sorry, we missed Josephat Karanja because that was the other person who lost his position.
Actually, he had to go through parliamentary censure.
Yes.
And probably that's the closest kind of process, parliamentary process for the removal of a deputy president.
And he also goes through, he's almost the same position with the current deputy president. He was a first-time member of parliament. He was an academician, you know, from the University of Nairobi. And then he found himself in parliament. Then being the first term, he had like 2 years experience. He gets appointed into the position of vice president. And it didn't last, you know, for long. Looks like Kenya, we have this habit of looking for least experienced people. Maybe our presidents look for people they think will be yes men.
You seem to suggest that Rigathi Gachagua's problems emanated from the fact that probably he was a political novice. Is that what you're saying?
Partly yes. Partly yes, because some of the mistakes that he has done are from lack of political experience. You know, if you look at the people who voted him out, 281, that is 80% of the current members of parliament. Yet, if you would have listened to the defense that he brought, he had a very strong defense. So they were not looking for those facts. They were listening to the political voices that were going around what was happening. So he must have made, he has made several political blunders, you know, which brought him to this position. The one that really comes to my mind right now is when the president made a press conference after the Gen Z demonstrations. 30 minutes later, he also called a press conference in Mombasa. He may not have, if you listen to the words, maybe there was nothing wrong with what he said. But politically, that does not sound very nice. You know, when your boss has made a pronouncement, then immediately you are making other pronouncements, whether you are supporting or you are to the contrary. That is not how order of things are done, you know, politically. Right. You know, once the boss have talked, that's the end of it. He should have talked earlier. Then the boss to conclude, but it shouldn't be seen as if they're competing.
Well, yesterday, the deputy president faced his accusers head-on inside the National Assembly. Let's get to hear some of the defense that Rigathi Gachagua offered yesterday.
Tuesday afternoon, minutes to 5 p.m., and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua arrived at Parliament buildings. And minutes after 5 p.m., he was at the chambers, ready to defend himself, as he promised on Monday. He presented his 533-page script, almost identical to the one he did to his employer, the people of Kenya, in a televised address Monday evening. This time round, with videos evidently targeted at throwing jibes at his boss.
I am persuaded that the National Intelligence Service ought to have known beforehand that the public was completely opposed to the finance bill, and they ought to have briefed the president before the protests began, and this would have caused a change of tact by government regarding the proposed bill and the protests which culminated in the loss of innocent lives and destruction of property would have been avoided. Hence, I expressed my opinion on this in my public media briefing in Mombasa, and my utterances were not any different from what happens in other countries.
His videos largely captured various occurrences where the president said things that, according to Gachagua, mirrored the ones used as evidence adduced against him for impeachment.
If you cannot keep time with your employer, you have basically dismissed yourself. Leo ni siku ya performance contract. Ile siku muhimu sana ya kuja kuweka. Na wewe umefika pale rais anakaa. tayari amekaa na ndiye rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Wewe umechelewa ukiwa kuona nani? Many of you, the people I speak to, don't even know what is going on in your ministries or departments. Call before the constitution. Tumekubaliana watu wa Nairobi? Vijana tumekubaliana? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That was President William Ruto talking the same language as his deputy, that brutal and forceful evictions have no place under this administration. We have seen a video of brutal eviction. We have seen young children crying in tears. The deputy president is being accused of undermining his boss by just doing what his boss said.
The DP defended himself against all the allegations against him in a motion that sought to remove him from office.
Copy of the agreement for sale and purchase of this property marked as Annexure RG8.
Gachagua spent his 2 hours countering what was presented by his accuser, Kibwezi West Member of Parliament Mwengi Mutuse, in his 11 accusations, saying he has not committed any crime under the Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, nor under the Proceeds of Crime and Money Laundering Act, that he has not violated the Leadership and Integrity Act or intimidated any state or public officials over tenders, and that no evidence has been presented to support the allegations.
Of the official residents were approved and allocated by this Honourable House based on the fact that the premises had been neglected for a very long time when Dr. William Ruto was Deputy President. It cannot be fair that this House would proceed to impeach me because of an action that these honourable members have approved by way of appropriating monies for their renovations.
The DP says that he is a good student of the president and that it would be unfair to target him and spare the president.
House. Whatever happens to Rigathi Gachagua, whether he's in or out of office, this war must continue and must be won for the sake of our children.
For TV47, I'm Linda Alela.
Yes, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua yesterday before the National Assembly, where he offered his defense to the 11 accusations on his impeachment. And I'm looking at his page on X this morning. And these posts were posted last night, I think moments after the vote had been taken. His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, on one of the posts, says, he quotes a Bible verse, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18, and he says, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. The next post, he quotes another Bible verse, Jeremiah 30, verse 19. From them will come songs of thanksgiving and the sound of rejoicing. I will add to their numbers, and they will not be decreased. I will bring them honor, and they will not be disdained. And he finishes the post by saying, it is well. That's the official page of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. I'm still in studio with June Jomo, former MP Kiambu Town. Now joining the panel, we have Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, and Wakili Cyrus Akiro, Advocate of the High Court. Gentlemen, karibuni sana to this conversation. So the Deputy President yesterday offered what he felt was a good defense against the impeachment. Do you agree that he did a good job in his defense? It may not have gone his way. The members of the National Assembly voted overwhelmingly, 281 members. That's unprecedented on such a matter. Bwana Osido, do you think, in as far as the Deputy President's defense is concerned, that he actually gave it his all?
Thank you so much for this invitation. Looking at what kind of allegations and accusations that were presented, I believe that His Excellency, the Deputy President, did well to be able to provide his defense, in as much as the kind of conversations that were going on at the National Assembly looked largely political, as opposed to really having met the constitutional threshold of impeachment of a deputy president. Because if you look at the kind of issues that were levied against the deputy president, it looked as if, one, we have institutions that should have been allowed to undertake the mandate for which the members of the National Assembly were actually executing. And two, the deputy president's defense looked like he really wanted to fix the president. And you realize that even in a number of ways, he kept saying, it is if the deputy president has to be impeached for following his boss, then so be it. And his last words that he spoke from the story that Linda has carried is that this war must continue. So we really do not know what else he has that could probably amount to a proper defense, whereas really on the floor of the National Assembly, what was expected of him was purely what he was able to present. And you realize that immediately after that, the mover of the motion, Mheshimiwa Mwengi Mutusi, actually came up again and even went further and looked as if he even had more evidence against the DP, and that some of the things that the kind of defense that the DP was sharing did not, in his eyes and mind as the mover of this particular motion, meet the kind of defense that they expected. Some members like Mheshimiwa Junet Mohammed said they were disappointed at the defense, but I think it basically was left for each of the members ahead of their vote to determine how they were going to vote, which I don't think even required the kind of defense that the deputy president gave, because already it looked as if a majority of the members were actually determined to send home, or rather to impeach the deputy president. So looking at it from the face value, we can give credit to the DP for having shared his defense, satisfactorily or not satisfactorily. From a governance perspective, it is still my opinion that most of those issues should have been left to constitutional commissions like NCIC, EACC, and many others. And Fred, you realize that the DP actually, even when he came into office, is a gentleman who was carrying very many loads of cases. And immediately into ascension of power, these cases just fizzled out. They died. And so it really leaves us to wonder what kind of thresholds any cases of corruption or of incitement would really amount to. And it's therefore precedents that we look forward to seeing how it will be interpreted, especially at the Senate, because this matter is moving there. And in the event that he still wants to undertake this kind of defense at the judiciary, in the event that he goes there, then I think it will really set a precedence for many, many things, including the fact that we do not have a law on impeachments of both governors and even the deputy president or even the president. So I think this will really help us, and indeed what we call constitutional threshold for an impeachment.
Wakili Akiro, this is the first time we're testing this provision for impeachment of the presidency, if we may call it that, for the first time, and we've seen how it's gone. And many may have expected probably a different, more thorough process before the National Assembly. There are questions on whether or not the process before the National Assembly was fair. Did it feel like a fair trial? That those who argue, and if you go through social media, that it was already decided by the members of the National Assembly that whatever defense the deputy president was going to give, it would not matter, that this had already been decided beforehand. Do you think that that constitutes the tenets of fair trial?
Well, when we look at Fred, the DP's processes that took place, we would see from the sentiments of some of the key players within the National Assembly, if not the Parliament, making pre-trial remarks. And these were actually highlighted. And if you're going to sit to try somebody and you already have a formed opinion to the extent of even before he brings his defense, there are some corrections being made. You did this, please apologize first. I think the DP is gone overboard. So these sentiments, Fred, they go a long way into muddying the trial process. And just as my friend Osido has mentioned, this was a premeditated approach that, with or without concrete and unrebuttable evidence produced by the deputy president, his goose were cooked and his was on the frying pan. He was already cooked. The decision has been made. And in fact, when he was giving his defense before the media, you saw his first remark that he made that carried almost the headlines, that a decision has been made. He was aware that the decision has been made. So where we have decisions being made, and this is not the first time we're getting these pre-made decisions in our country. And so you find that if a scrutiny is to be taken with impartial bodies, carefully dissecting into the rules and the procedures that are required and the veracity, the level of the evidence that are supposed to be produced to impeach such a level of a government official, Parliament never had it.
Wow. But Ajun Jomo, you've sat in the National Assembly, and the expectation is that impeachment of a presidency should not be that easy. The level of proof should be much higher. This is the first time this is happening, and definitely it will set a precedent that this is the threshold that is required to impeach a deputy president. It's on record now, and it's the same provision for the presidents as well. Do you feel that this process, as we watched it in the National Assembly, gives you confidence enough about this process of impeachment, and are we approaching it the right way?
I think we are approaching it in the same way that the Deputy President approached it, trying to look at, is it just? Are we looking at the correct facts? Have we followed the legal process? What happened yesterday was a political process. The Deputy President came to defend himself in a legal way. He was supposed to defend himself in a political way, which he should have done before. I have lost a bill in Parliament because of failure to raise 2/3 majority. Remember the capping of interest rates. Many laws have been lost in Parliament because raising 2/3 in Parliament is very, very difficult. Because members of Parliament are very busy. They're in committees. Committees go out to work in the field, So at any time, there are committees that are out. At any time, there are members who are out of the country. At any time, there are members who are not able to attend Parliament because of certain reasons. But yesterday, every member of Parliament was there. What does that mean? That the Parliament had stopped any other activity so that all the members are there in Parliament, which shows that all the relevant political parties had also whipped their members. Yesterday they made even arrangements for lactating mothers to have to be very comfortable so that they can stay in Parliament as long as they could. So this was really very well organized, very well whipped, very well mobilized. So it was a political process. And this reminds us that, or shows us that what the Deputy President should have done was to look for a political solution rather than to come and try and prove his innocence here. I had said here before that if you look at the way he was going around, the Deputy President had just a handful members of Parliament who used to accompany him. And he needed those members of Parliament for his political survival. So without them, how could he survive politically? He needed to pull together members of Parliament. If you remember when President Ruto was the Deputy President, he had a big following of members of Parliament because he knew he needed them for his political survival. Deputy President Gachagua lacked in that, and that could have caused his political downfall. It doesn't matter what he says. Whatever he brings as his defense, it will be torn by people who are saying things differently politically. For example, he justified most of the property to be his brother's property, which he's is taking as a trustee. So the members of Parliament took that and converted that and saying that it is very shameful that he has taken property from his brother, instead of his family inheriting, now he's inheriting his brother. So it doesn't matter what he says. They are going to poke holes into his evidence. Okay. But the National Assembly is not a trial chamber. At least Senate has a little bit more details, because there'll be a question and answer sessions. His advocates will be around, to address the Senate and to lead him through the evidence. But it is also, okay, we will get more details, but the senators don't have to vote by legal saying that, okay, there are 10, you have been accused of 10 charges. So charge number 1, you are innocent. Charge number 2, you are guilty. They'll still vote in a political way. To me, I see the only way maybe the deputy president may survive will be through the court, because even the Senate will definitely get the 2/3 majority.
Wow. Yes, definitely the prospects of what happens next to the deputy president also feature on the front pages. Will he be saved by the Senate, or will the courts come to his aid? We're continuing with this conversation after the break. Don't go too far. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Welcome back. This is the Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indimuli. We continue with the state of the nation here. With this gentleman, we have Wakili Silas Akiro, Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu Town, and Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. We continue taking a look at the impeachment of the Deputy President. And even as we do that, we do see that quite a number of people are watching. Abednego Mwamburi says, good morning, watching from Malindi. Asante sana Abednego. And someone else, Willie Bazoo, KE, saying, getting loud, you loud and clear from Kitale, Birunda. Thank you so much, Willie Bazoo, and keep watching. And everyone else who's watching us, thank you very much for keeping it TV47. Now, just before the break, Bwana Njomo was talking about what could happen next at the Senate and probably the courts. But a lot has been talked about how else the Deputy President can save himself from this process, given the kind of repercussions that would come with a successful impeachment that would bar him from holding political office or running for political office going forward. And many people are saying that probably he should have resigned. And question is there still room for that at this point? Could a resignation offer any relief at this point, even politically, probably, Bwana Osido?
Fred, that's a very interesting one. And whether resignation now or later, the die is already cast. And the best moment for the DP to should have resigned was actually before yesterday. And you realize that most of us were expecting that the late night presser, Monday late night presser, was actually going to be it. And when he came up, I think that one of the last things he said was that for some of you who are advising me to resign, forget about it. And it seemingly looks as if there is something that the Deputy President has against this government and against the presidency and vice versa. And that he probably is looking forward to an opportunity to open up this veil, politically speaking. And if you look at some of the sentiments that came up from the different regions during the public participation, regardless of whether it also met the threshold for proper engagement with citizens on this matter. That's neither here nor there now, but it's really something that will be looked at because it is important. It therefore seems as if the Deputy President is preparing himself for war. And as I said earlier on, quoting what he said, that this war must continue regardless of what happens. So it really leaves us wondering what it is that either he knows or he has against the president, despite the kind of plenty of references that he made, calling him my boss, my friend, and all those kind of things, against the consequences of resignation and impeachment. Because indeed a resignation for him, being a politician, would have been the best opportunity for him. Now to go back and reorganize the mountain, and depending on whether people still feel his power and of course authority, then that would help him to move forward towards any political seats, including running for office as president in 2027. But in the event that this already is impeached by the National Assembly, so those chances are closed, whether the Senate rescues him or not, is going to be a veil that is going to be carrying and saying, but you are a DP who was impeached. And it is quite interesting because if you look at the kind of relationships that we have had, particularly since the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya, from our inaugural election in 2013, one wonders why this has to happen for a deputy president and even a president, because we saw for 10 years, and 80% of the 10 years between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, it was almost similar to what we are seeing today. And now Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua has actually been impeached. So it also leaves us wondering, what really is this thing about the office of the deputy president and even for deputy governors, because almost a similar thing is happening down there for many of the county governments, where governors are innovating ways to engage and to interact and to relate with their deputies. Okay. But for Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua, it leaves us to wonder what he really wants to do post the Senate, and even as he's preparing for the Senate, and even at the courts, whether the courts will be able to give him that silver lining around what to do politically and maybe even legally in the event that this gets
Wakili Akiro, yes, even the other gentlemen say that the kind of response or defense that the Deputy President offered before the National Assembly was more legal than political. Does it mean, therefore, that he stands a chance before the courts? Do the courts really consider the grounds of impeachment and the kind of defense offered, or do they just look at the process and whether or not it met the threshold?
Well, you see, process and substance go together in law. What was presented as a matter of evidence always sometimes have to be evaluated. However, for you to successfully prosecute a case against another arm of government, you'll particularly look at the constitutionality in terms of process. Process has always proven to be a good vehicle into the success of poking holes into another arm of government as compared to substance. And therefore, the DP has to really put up a very strong legal team that are going to assist him in the court if we cross that river, to bring into disrepute and reproach the processes and the procedures he was passed through during this impeachment. And I believe that on a fair ground to be neutral and impartial in this whole thing, on the procedure or process-wise, the DP stands a chance in the courts. However, just like my colleagues have said, you have to be smart in terms of politics. Know with which weapon are you supposed to fight what battle. If it is purely a legal battle, go legal. And where do we get legal battles? In courts. When you go to the National Assembly or the Parliament as a whole, attack that thing politically and sandwich it with some bit of legals. And that is what the other side has done. They've made sure that politics-wise, they have all the numbers in their basket. Then legal-wise, just find a few things put together, support with the politics, have it. Now, Osido has commented on a very good point that I would like to maybe anchor through. Where does the DP's resignation help come at this stage? Whereas it was pertinent that he ought to have resigned before Parliament votes, I mean the National Assembly votes, majority would have looked at that as a weakness on his side. And probably politically, he would not have been even able to galvanize even the mountain. Because people from the mountain, our brothers and sisters from the mountain, we know them as warriors, and they never want to see anybody chickening out or presenting some form of cowardice. Now, somebody has said this morning that another route out for DP, which I also think is correct, he would strike a political bargain with the president. Then we have the Senate a little bit weakened. They throw out this impeachment and then he resigns. I mean, the impeachment process slowed or stopped and then he resigns. Says, well, Mr. President, thank you for your time, but here, please salvage me this situation. Let's cut the deal this way. I'm going to resign, but please weaken a little bit your support from the Senate. Then once the whole process of impeachment is curtailed from the Senate, then he comes out and resigns. And then we get another deputy president. However, if there is no political deal between the two, no way out. Absolutely no way out. And this impeachment does not only bars the deputy president from any political office, but also any public office in the country.
Interesting.
I think that door is closed, Bonaidi, because we saw the deputy president apologizing to the president through media. If there was, I think they have lost total communication. I don't think there is any communication between the two offices. I think the time for, apologizing or trying to craft some political deal is long gone. I don't think there is any communication between the two offices or the two individuals of the president and the deputy president. I don't think there is any talking. They're not in any talking terms. And they should have done that much earlier.
And I find that tweet by Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, where he says the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua should cut a quick deal with His Excellency William Ruto tonight, or at least by tomorrow before 4 p.m. Resign and negotiate an amnesty and an undertaking from President Ruto not to send his dogs after him. And he offers at a reasonable fees, the usual rate for white shoe law firms.
That's the route. That's the route. That's the route. If they go on a political sit down, I know the president's stance is always very rough and tough, but if His Excellency the president can have a handshake with the former prime minister and have all his MPs in his basket.
Nothing is impossible in politics.
Nothing is impossible.
In a game of politics, you don't start a battle and then you stop the battle halfway. You start with a battle with the purposes of finishing the battle. I don't think the president started this battle just to show that he has teeth to bite. He started this battle so that he can go the whole hog. And I think that is what he's planning to do. If I were the president at this juncture, just when I've started gaining, he has made the first gain in the National Assembly. He knows he's going to get another gain in the Senate. Why should he start cutting deals? Well, he is doing this because to him, he has exhausted all the other avenues. He has maybe tried to talk to him. He has tried to send emissaries to him, and he has not changed. So the time for the president has come for him now to fight. It's a political battle, and I think the president is ready to go all the way to make sure that...
Yet people settle out of court all the time, even when it's so aggravated, even in cases where people don't see eye to eye. For example, the senior counsel here offers to actually be the mediator, and he says, at a reasonable fees, of course, he's looking for a job. The usual rate for white I can get for Honorable Rigathi Gachagua those terms from the president.
Fred, this is different because remember, he's speaking legalese, but this is a political process. And the politics in this country, the manner in which it is done, is the political party, you get into power, and then we see what happens in terms of numbers at the National Assembly. If there was an opportunity for which the deputy president probably wanted a handshake with his boss, I think it should have been before last evening. I remember that even before yesterday, we have had the DP speak very many times, which to me was unnecessary, irrelevant. And in part of those conversations, he has said, and in fact, even in our common WhatsApp groups, I have been left, you know. And so that already indicates to you that, and he's even said that many times the president has left the country. He went to Unga. He said, I'm not aware. He's not told me. So there is no communication. And if even the handlers and the advisors of both the president and the deputy president wanted a similar thing to happen, they would have dealt with it politically before what we saw at the National Assembly. But remember that up to very early in the morning, because we saw on the roads of, especially within the CBT, the process was very properly whipped. And the members, for the first time, I am actually surprised that only 23, actually almost 22 of them were not there. The house was packed. If there was an opportunity for us to see the kind of whipping that the senior counsel is talking about, then you would have also seen those telltales just before the process at the National Assembly. But that was a political battle that needed to be won politically. And on this one, the president is winning it politically. And remember the kind of some of the accusations that the DP himself has actually talked about, that people are saying, oh, I wanted to assassinate so and so, I funded the Gen Z demonstrations. Those are things which play against you and need to be sorted out in camera, but politically. When you get to the legal process, and the members of the National Assembly looked very confident about their evidence. In fact, Mheshimiwa Mwengi was at some point even saying, give me my phone. So we also do not know what people are sending to them and what sort of information they have, which might be played at the Senate and probably at the national, at the judiciary or at the law courts. So the door for political deals and engagements began at the point of being co-partners in the party. So you run on one ticket, and it should have continued up to the end of their presidency in 2027. Okay. But this mid-brief and the kind of conversations that we have seen, I don't think, unless it is in their both political interests, which the silence of His Excellency the President, William Ruto, also speaks so loudly about. And had he really been interested in sealing this deal before where I think we got, the president is an honest man, as his deputy is a truthful man. He speaks. When he's angry, you will see that this guy is very angry. Okay. When he's happy, he'll call you my friends, my brothers and sisters, wenzangu, Wakenya wenzangu. But his silence on this one, I think, should also speak very loudly to the deputy president.
Our team here at TV47 also filed another story on what happens next for the deputy president as far as this impeachment motion is concerned. Let's watch that story.
The results of the division on the motion are as follows. Abstentions, 1. The noes, 44. The ayes, 281. So the ayes have it. And the results brought to the Speaker are duly signed by all the 4 nominated tellers. Honourable members, I have a short communication following that. Before. Order. The House is still in session. I have the following communication to make, honourable members, before we open the bar. On the decision of the National Assembly, on the special motion on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Honorable members, as I had guided the House earlier in today's sitting, Article 145(2) of the Constitution sets a threshold of at least 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly to vote in support of a special motion for proposed removal by impeachment of the Deputy President of the Republic for the motion to be carried. According to the results of the division on the motion that I've just declared, a total of 281 members, being more than 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly, have voted in support of the motion. Article 145(2)(a) of the Constitution provides that, I quote, if a motion under Clause 1 is supported by at least 2/3 of all members of the National Assembly, the Speaker shall inform the Speaker of the Senate of the resolution within 2 days. In this regard, I'll proceed to discharge the singular duty placed on me by Article 145(2)(b) of the Constitution and under which to notify the Speaker of the Senate of the resolution of the National Assembly. The clerk is directed to prepare the necessary documentations to accompany the resolution. The House will resume tomorrow, Wednesday, 9th October 2024, at 9:30 a.m. to resume with the regular business as scheduled by the House Business Committee. I thank you. Members, will you now be upstanding?
So the matter now moves to the Senate, and I'm looking at Article 145, removal of President or Deputy President by impeachment. So once the Speaker of the National Assembly has, within 7 days, after receiving notice of a resolution from the Speaker of the National Assembly, which Speaker Moses Wetangula said has to be within 2 days. Now, the Speaker of the Senate shall convene a meeting of the Senate to hear charges against the President or Deputy President, and the Senate may, by resolution, appoint a special committee comprising 11 of its members to investigate the matter. Now, the special committee shall investigate the matter and report to the Senate within 10 days finds the particulars of the allegations against the President to have been substantiated. Yes. So it would appear that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the Senate will have delivered its on its mandate. Let's go back to the defense that the Deputy President offered. Bwana Jude Jomo, they talked about, the Deputy President talked a lot about why he did a lot of what he did or what he said, probably against senior members of the public service, including the police bosses, DCI, and the NIS especially. And he said he learned from his boss. Could this have been informed by the public participation that we saw last Friday and Saturday, where so many people said if the Deputy President is wrong in what you accuse him of, then the President, his boss, has more or less done the same, if not worse. And therefore, kufa makanga, kufa dereva. Do you think that the Deputy President rode on that the people are saying kufa makanga, kufa dereva, so if I'm going down, I can also quote and say the President did the same, if not worse?
I think the time came for the Deputy President to leave. A decision was made that now I don't think I can work with this gentleman anymore. So can we find reasons for him to go? So that's why they put together all those charges. Some of them, were not really thought, they had not thought them out through, or they had not really gone into depth to find out whether they are good or bad. And they brought them to Parliament. And here we have, I think, four faces, or four judges. The first judge is Parliament, the second judge is Senate, the other one is the public, because they had to go to public participation, and the fourth will be the courts. Now, when they brought these charges to the public, we saw what happened during the public participation. And I think this is one of the areas where the Deputy President will really challenge this in a court of law, because where the opinions that were put out by the public, like you say, in most areas we could hear they're saying kufa dereva, kufa makanga. They were saying the Deputy President is as guilty as the President is. For everybody has his own offenses that he has done, and the Deputy President is no more guilty than the President. If we were to look at also what the president has done that can also qualify him for impeachment. That is what the public said. We have discussed here what went through to, in Parliament as a political process. And I expect when he goes to court, like Wakiri have said, maybe this is the time they are going to look at the substance of the matters that are there in court. I remember one particular one where he's accused of building a road in Vipingo, you know, and he came out and said, no, this was done because the king was visiting the area, and also the secondary schools and the villages had requested for the road to be done. The charges had indicated that that was a private road. He came out and said, no, it is a public road. Maybe those are some of the areas where the court is going to exonerate him. But I think this is a political process. Like Osido said, his goose is cooked, a decision has been made. So all they are doing now is to look for ways of justifying the end. The end has already been
Let's
decided.
focus a bit on that issue of public participation, because a report tabled before the House by the members of the National Assembly on the public participation indicated that 65% of people who took part in the public participation across the country asked their members to vote yes for this impeachment. And without any proper mechanism to actually calibrate or even weight the results of public participation, do you think that this are proper grounds that should be challenged before a court of law? The fact that, yes, it is a political process, and if it's political, that is where even members of the public come in. Their views should be heard. But where did the 65% come from?
Well, Fred, you see, the whole process of collecting public views, you know, it was called collecting public views. But really, they were meaning public participation. It was shrouded in a lot of mysteries in terms of there are people who are questioning the security measures around the document that was being used. Others were questioning, was it necessary for the deputy's defense to also accompany the charges against him, so that when there is the public may be able to weigh whether they are making an informed decision in terms of supporting or not supporting. Others also argued on the timelines. You know, whereas we do not have legal timelines for public participation, courts have always leaned on the decision that public participation has to be adequate. It has to be proper. Whereas I do not see timelines for the National Assembly to impeach the deputy president, unlike the Senate that has well-elaborate timelines. After impeachment from the National Assembly, 2 days inform the Speaker. Within 7 days, the committee is formed. 10 days, a vote is done. For them, they have an elaborate timeline. I thought the absence of timeline at the lower stage, that is at the National Assembly, is to allow adequate processes to be undertaken. I believe in as I said earlier, that if the DP's legal team would easily dwell in this aspect of public participation, they can throw this out if there is no premeditation and there are no checks around the corridors.
Okay. and yes, it has been one of those issues that the courts have really relied on in throwing out quite a number of government policies, some pieces of legislation that the National Assembly and the Senate have passed. Yet provisions of law with regard to how to actually go through public participation, there's still a gap there. Do you think that going forward, this will be the biggest problem? Public participation. How do you weight it? How do you quantify or even qualify and say 65% said yes or no?
Actually, there is supposed to be a bill at the Senate on on a framework for public participation. At the county levels, all the 47 county governments have a Public Participation Act, which needs to be given an anchorage at the national level, which is where the problem is. despite the presence of a policy, because we also have the Kenya National Public Participation Policy, which was done by the Minister of Devolution in the previous government. Now, on that particular issue, a lot of reliance, therefore, has been given to the recommendations by various courts, both at the High Court and also at the Supreme Court, based on some of the judgments or the cases that have been presented there. And some of those judgments, really, I believe that in the event that the Deputy President goes to the courts, then the courts will be relying on what precedence has been set previously on some of the cases, particularly on the impeachment cases. And there are quite a number of them, almost 6 or 7 cases, from Embu to Kiambu to Meru to Nairobi here, the Sonko case, and many, many others. What I think baffles me is the degree of investment, Fred, that we saw in the National Assembly, particularly on this matter. Because for once, we saw 2 heavily printed notices, which we don't see in a similar manner for important issues that really concern the citizens. And in many of these fora that took place on Friday and on Saturday, majority of citizens were saying, why do you even call us here for this issue? And you did not call us over Adani. You did not call us over the new funding for the new funding model for universities. You haven't even talked to us about Shifa and many, many others, including the disbanded finance bill. So it really leaves a lot to the National Assembly to think through. And I think that Mheshimiwa Millie Odhiambo actually was at pains to try to meander around the priority of the National Assembly in its public participation measures against the interests of the citizens. And in fact, she was saying that we have done public participation, and this does not mean that we are disregarding what the other concerns of the citizens, which I think, in my view, is also going to try and dent public trust in the National Assembly. Remember that on June 25th, a majority of Kenyans, or some good percentage of Kenyans, actually stormed the National Assembly and they occupied Parliament. I don't know what that really is supposed to send to parliamentarians, particularly on issues around public participation and how the leadership of the House should have actually picked up a matter like the impeachment of the Deputy President vis-a-vis public participation. So in terms of looking at what governance premises and indicators would require for public participation, I do not think, Fred, that they met this particular issue, met the threshold based on the reports that we have seen. It is utterly even disturbing that at the National Assembly, we did not see the tabling of that report beyond just the statistics that we were given. And so it leaves us wondering how many persons with disability participated in this process. Did we have elders? Did we have young people? Yes, of course, they said there were some written memoranda which were sent online. How many were they? And even in terms of the template that was shared for the citizens, it looked quite prescriptive in terms of what was expected, and that therefore dents the opportunity for the public to actually participate, because in most of those questions, it was either a yes or no. And you are expected to give either that tick in all the charges, which, if you look at the conversations that were going on at the National Assembly, is not how the citizens were expected. Because for one, the evidence that was being adduced at the National Assembly should have been made available for the citizens in the various town halls where they were, so that you are told, on charge number 1, this is what the Constitution of Kenya says, this is what the DP has said, and this is the evidence. Because in most of the analysis that we did, even as County Governance Watch and other organizations, a majority of the public relied on the first charge, which was on incitement and those ethnic manenos of Mulima, Mount Kenya, and everything the DP is talking about is really concentrating at the Mulima. So if you were to weigh public participation against all the 11 charges, then there are gaps there that probably, I don't know what the National Assembly will do to help us understand how the people's views on almost all those charges were taken. One. Number two, if you look at the manner in which public participation was being discharged, which is now not what we see happening, we expected that officials of parliament and not the members of National Assembly should have taken lead in terms of guiding the citizens through what I am advising over. But in a number of these sessions, we actually saw parliamentarians being the ones standing at the forefront and telling people to vote in a specific manner. Like, oh, alikuja hapa, alituambia hivi, munataka ende ama akae. And that honestly is not what public participation is supposed to be. The office of the clerk that we work very closely with should have taken a very upper hand to be able to send officers, which I am sure in some of the areas they were actually sent, particularly on Saturday. But if you look at the presence and attendance of most of those meetings, particularly at the constituency level, almost a number of halls were empty. And so I don't know what the Senate or the law courts will do in the event that this process gets to the law around this report on public participation, because I believe that in discharging its mandate as a National Assembly, the report on public participation should have actually been one of the priority output documents that they should have also informed Kenyans of.
June Jomo, it's obvious that members of the National Assembly use public participation simply as a formality. That it is something that's required, and if we fail to do it, we're going to experience some legal hurdles ahead. Let's just do it. But without a proper mechanism of how to weigh the results or the responses, what is the use of this? Because many Kenyans, and on Friday or Saturday, it would appear they took it as a referendum of some sort, that we should be voting for something. They were even asking for ballots, that these papers should be having serial numbers so that they can be counted. Yeah. Even Kenyans themselves do not understand the process itself. What is the necessity of such a process that is an obvious sham?
I think the drafters of our constitution had in mind a process that will let Kenyans know what is happening when things are being done in parliament, and where Kenyans could participate in giving direction to whatever is being asked for public participation. For once, we saw a public, because I have participated in public participation, we saw where a situation where people were called and they came out in numbers. You know, before, people had to be mobilized to come for public participation. And you would go to a town, maybe to a county headquarters for a public participation, and this for issues that are affecting the people. And you'll find that you'll have a meeting with 100 people. But this time round, like when I went to Kiambu, you know, it was as if there is a public rally. People have been called, and they are saying, no, these are not the original documents. Why do you want us to fill in photocopies? How do we know that these photocopies, and we know they are being filled, and they are being loaded to a certain members of parliament car, which is parked at the back. And they are saying, this member of parliament want us to vote in a certain direction, and these documents are being taken after they are filled, they are being taken to his car. How do we know that they are not going to be changed? There were allegations that there were people in a certain hotel who were filling these same forms last night. You know, people are feeling a decision has already been made. And yes, they were treating this like if it was a referendum. And in the public eye, they were already doing a referendum for the country when they said, Kuva Driver, Kuva na Makanga. This is what we want. I am seeing a situation, Fred, where going forward, it will be very, very difficult for people to come out for public participation, because they have seen it is just an exercise in futility. They are just being used to fulfill a constitutional requirement. Their voice is not being heard, because they will really doubt the results that were taken to parliament. And they have no way of finding out whether this is true. They have known that people have gone to elections and the results that are announced are not what they voted for. Yet they had agents in those halls and they had agents in the voting booths, but things have changed somewhere along the way. Now, in this process, those checks and balances are not there. So they have no way of trusting or ensuring that what they said is what got into parliament. And you see, whatever was said in Kiambu may be completely different from what was said in Migori, may be completely different from what was said in Coast. Wananchi have no way of knowing this. But deep in their mind, they know that a decision has been made. And things are going to be done to ensure that this decision sees the light of the day. You know, that is how Wananchi is going to think. So in future, I'm seeing a situation where people will be called for public participation and they'll not get time to go because they know it doesn't matter what we say. Things will go in the direction that Parliament wants.
Okay. And actually, Fred, even if you look at, I'm trying to get the statistics that was being read, they were being read in terms of hundreds of thousands. And I think, if I remember correctly, I stand to be guided, the highest number I had being read by Mheshimiwa Kajwang was, I think, 144,000. Mm-hmm. And if you were to look at threshold for impeachment of our deputy president against the millions of votes, then honestly, I don't know where they are getting the 66% or what they are basing it over. Because if you were to take 144 over 7 point, I think the DP talks about 7.6 million times 100 is almost 0.000. It's a very negligible number.
But isn't that looking at it as a referendum? Public participation should just sample views of the public, not necessarily get an overview like an election or a referendum.
Which is where the problem lies. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at many of the issues that, for instance, would require the public's comments or views on this matter, take an example of a recall. Despite the fact that the recall issue is in court and is being discussed there, there is the constitutional threshold that you need at least a third of those who voted in that election to recall that member, you get. And that there is also a specific timeline that you cannot do it 2 years into the next election. So regardless of what happens at the recall really honestly needs to guide part of what needs to happen at the impeachment of a president and his deputy, because what the Constitution anticipates is that, yes, in the impeachment of a deputy president in Article 150, in fact, 152 says that the provisions of Article 144 and 145 relating to the removal of president shall apply, and there is a caveat there, with necessary modifications to the removal of the deputy president. So already there are loopholes, which those modifications, in my view, should also relate to the public participation processes. And one of those issues needs to look at how do we ensure that we have as many Kenyans participating, regardless of how we do the election. For example, some of those who attended the public participation at Bomas probably voted in Siaya, like myself. Some of those who are in Kisii probably are supposed to be voting in Kitui because there was no holiday. There are many, many things that relate to how people vote, which therefore should also inform how these particular views of the Kenyans around the impeachment of the presidency, particularly in this matter as a deputy president, should have been done.
Okay.
In some of the areas, the members of parliament who should have been conducting the public participation in Kwale, for example, were actually here in Nairobi. I remember KJ, because we were in Dagoretti South on Saturday, he conducted his public participation at Bomas, and he was actually seated there. People like TJ Kajwang, among others. But if you went to the ground, people would tell you, tunafanya tu sababu sasa ni our patriotic nature. But so the guidance and the leadership around public participation on this particular matter, I think should have been properly thought through, despite basically just the expectation that you put it in two widely read newspapers.
All right. And it's interesting that you've brought up the issue of recall of MPs. Through this public participation, Bwana Akiro, the feeling is that whatever we feel as a general public, whatever we say, whatever we speak out may not necessarily matter when it comes to voting patterns in the National Assembly. These are representatives of the people, but whatever Kenyans say may not really be of consequence to them. Yet, when it comes to the recall of members of the National Assembly, which is still a provision in our Constitution that is yet to be tested, that probably would be the best way where Kenyans would feel that they have a direct impact on these representatives. Do you think that lack of proper participation right now could lead to better participation of the public when it comes to possible recall of members of parliament?
One thing I appreciate with the current crop of citizens in the country is that they are well informed, they are yearning for a better future, and they themselves put their government on checks. The lapses of today, they want them cured for tomorrow's event. And yes, as you say, the lapses of the public participation today would really call for an agitation from the members of the public on how to better it next time. We are going to appreciate, all of us as a country, that whether or not he is actually removed from power, rather from office, the deputy president has made history and has left some huge precedences that are either going to be bad or good, but which are going to form the stepping stone into betterment of our procedures and processes next time. In my view, if I was to be asked my expertise in terms of public participation for the removal of anybody in the office, when you talk about the recall of a member of parliament, the votes are done at the constituency. So public participation ought to be done from each and every ward forming that constituency. We are removing the deputy president who was voted in alongside the president countrywide. These members of parliament were supposed to go back to their constituencies because that is where the votes were counted. The votes at the constituency made it the final vote to the national tally. So each and every member, because when you hear them in the National Assembly, that this is what the great people of so and so constituency have sent me to say, yet they were not there. Honestly, they were not there. If we are to really go by the actual sense, we would say they presented this thing as if it was governors voting against the removal of the deputy president, because the public participation happened at a specific hall within a county. Somebody was complaining that, take for example, was it Wajir or Mandera County or Marsabit County, where the hall was placed in Moyale. And before somebody comes from the downer parts of that county to Moyale, it takes time and resources. So, in essence, our next approach to public participation should be informed by the level of office we are impeaching, or the level of the officer we are removing. If it is the deputy president, the president, let us go to each and every constituency, at least set up, because it's a sample, yes, but at least set up some forum within the constituency, so that at the end of it, we have all our constituencies being represented in the National Assembly. And just as the law requires that each and every member of the National Assembly votes, then you will actually be voting on the views of your constituency. So I think even when the judiciary will be looking at this thing, I do not want to preempt what the judges will make. No, they're very wise in their own capacities and very competent at their own levels. But if a precedence can be made in that level, then our country can quickly progress.
Okay. Are you concerned that the way this has been handled so far, with questions around the public participation and the quality of it, that this process could just as well be used for the removal of the president? That the kind of public participation we've seen across the country that cannot be quantified is just a simple report, and we say 75% of the people said yes. And simply because we can marshal numbers in the National Assembly, 291 of them, it would be enough to get rid of the president.
This is a question I've also asked myself, especially after the public participation. And I really was wondering, has the government, whipped itself, whipped the public to start, fighting against the government? Because when I saw the numbers that came out, I was expecting that the public participation would be the kawaida thing, where you go to a hall, you get 100 people, who have come to express their opinion. But now I saw people close their businesses, people came out in big numbers, people came out with matawis, some were tearing out those papers and they're saying these are not real. It's like the government had willed people to come and put their voices against the same government. And this happened in many, many areas we could see from the media. But one thing I also noted, Bwana Idi, is that now the whole country's attention is focused in this. We have just forgotten that last week we got a message in our phones that all our funds in NHIF have been transferred to Social Health Authority, without any input, without any consultation from me. We have stopped talking about that Adani is taking over our airport. So I'm wondering, was this a whole process to divert the national attention, from very major issues that are going on, and we focus on the deputy president, who would have been impeached at any other time, but they took this time also so that we don't talk so much about those other things that are going on. We are not even now concerned because, like Patience, if you look at the front page of The Nation, you see that Patients are still paying cash for services as chief chaos persists. That becomes now a very small issue in our nation, yet it is affecting our people. Our attention has completely been diverted, and maybe there are even other things that are happening and they are escaping our attention as we focus every day on the impeachment of deputy president. I know he was being accused of referring to it as a theater of the absurd. Our country has also become a theater of the absurd, because we shall not pay attention to matters that really things that really matter in our country. We shall continue focusing on the deputy president. This now is going to the Senate. In the Senate, it will take like about 2 weeks. Okay, I know they have been given 7 days. I can promise you, within 3 days, they'll be working. They have no time to wait for 7 days. They want this thing done with. So for the next like about 2 weeks, we shall be focusing on the Senate. Then from the Senate, most likely, we shall now go to the courts. In the meantime, that will give opportunity to people who want to do things out of focus of or scrutiny of the public. It will give them an opportunity to do those things.
Okay, and your concern is well noted, but for now, we will still have to focus on the removal of the deputy president. And my question is, and I had asked Jude Njomo the same, whether we see the risk that with what we had talked about previously in the impeachment of governors, that there's a possibility that this process could be weaponized politically, that even now that we've seen public participation that is not even quantifiable properly can be used for the impeachment of a deputy president, and done so successfully, that this process could just as well be used to impeach a president of this republic who has been voted for by the majority of Kenyans. Yeah. Do you see that risk?
The risk is real. And actually, I think that based on the kind of public engagement that we saw on Friday and Saturday last week, probably the government did not anticipate that there would be that hashtag trending, and that the call around Kufa Makanga, Kufa Dereva na mechanic na wengine wao would have actually been there. Because the National Assembly members, and probably that would inform part of the reasons why they did not go to their constituencies, despite, of course, that there was a court case in Kirinyaga. The court actually ruled that the public participation doesn't just have to happen at those regional level, because I counted the halls, there were only 30. And so you would probably expect that 30 reports would then be submitted, would have been submitted yesterday, based on what the people who participated said. But given that this is a matter, as we already said, that requires the 290 constituencies where it is where Kenyans actually vote, then the court said, don't disenfranchise people. Encourage participation and do it in 290 constituencies. It is important that, Fred, even as we look at the kind of participation that Kenyans came over to do, it would have been fair for the National Assembly to issue a report on purely how many people participated from each of those 290 constituencies, based on, again, how they were voting, because a member was being called according to their constituencies. And having said that, it really is important for us to look at the impeachment of a president in Article 145 of the Constitution. Now, the challenge that we have, despite the public outcry, again, of Kufa Makanga, Kufa Dereva, that the only person by Constitution who can issue the motion is a member of the National Assembly. Now, that already dents that public mobilization and the ability and the inspiration and any sort of innovation that any Kenyan would have to want to impeach the president. And you remember that yesterday, most of the members were even trying to defend themselves by saying, yes, the public is saying Kufa Makanga, Kufa Dereva, but the motion on the floor of the House is that of impeachment of a deputy president, which therefore means that in the event that we have opportunities to amend the Constitution, then Kenyans should also motivate, we need to motivate ourselves to want to change this article, that any Kenyan, other than just a member of the National Assembly, because that already limits a majority of Kenyans who would have concerns. It is different from a recall, because now for the purpose of a recall, any member who is a registered voter can actually initiate that particular motion of a recall. But for the sake of a president, regardless of what we do, and the kind of sham engagements that the government might have, the impeachment is limited to those members of the National Assembly who actually need to be supported by themselves again. And the Constitution talks about at least a third of all the members. So that already is a limitation which might probably ask Kenyans, or rather demand for Kenyans to ask themselves, what other measures can we be able to ensure that if we have a president who is doing things that do not meet our expectations, or who is just running around and is not interested in serving the people, then what mechanisms can we therefore have? And I think that the challenge, because even as we speak right now, there is a censure motion by Senator Dan Manzo on the president. But you see, it's just a censure motion. It's not a motion of impeachment. And it's the same as what Mheshimiwa Dan Mungatana did for the censure motion of the deputy president, because that is purely where it ends. You are only censoring the person that you want to censure. So it really leaves a majority of Kenyans to wonder, what is our stake in terms of impeachments, and what is our role? Does that public participation outcry therefore amount to anything? Because in real sense, it should have been better for a member of the National Assembly now, or members, to begin to think through, if the public is saying Kufa Dereva, Kufa Makanga, but the motion on the floor is that of a deputy president. So who is this Dereva if they're saying Makanga and DP? So it presumably is that the president is the Dereva. So what do we do with an impeachment motion of the president, which, politically speaking, again, and based on the first segment of this discussion, might be the challenge? Because for a member who wants to move an impeachment motion on the president, you really have to ask yourself so many questions, particularly around how you will be politically viewed. Are you able to rally a third of members of parliament? Do you have enough money? I was shocked that one of the members yesterday was saying that people were whipped, some were paid. And that particular aspect of money, I think, is something that we also need to think through, particularly based on who we vote for office and what their responsibility in those offices are.
Time now for another break. We'll come back to finish the conversations as we look at what happens post-impeachment, of course, with the consideration that this process still has to go through the Senate and possibly through the courts. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through barriers.
Registration that he fought for. Pray, look, reflect, and apply your conscience and make the right decision. Mr. Speaker of the House, I want to thank you for granting me this opportunity. And my address last night was not in any way meant to disrespect the House. Despite, Mr. Speaker, you having ruled that the matter should not be taken out of the House, it was being discussed in every TV station, in every meeting across Kenya. And Kenyans did not have a chance to also hear my side of the story. So I decided, since the accusations against me were everywhere in the country, the people of Kenya, and more so those who voted for me and President William Ruto, deserved also to hear my side of the story. I have tremendous respect for the National Assembly and your ability and capacity to make the right decision. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Deputy President.
Yes, those are final remarks by the Deputy President yesterday at around 7 p.m. when he finished giving his side of the story, his defense against the impeachment motion before the National Assembly. Of course, after that, members went into division and voted overwhelmingly to impeach the Deputy President. So what happens next? Of course, we consider that, yes, the motion now moves to the Senate. Within the next 2 weeks, the Senate will have decided. After that, if necessary, the Deputy President may move to court. But beyond those two processes, the Senate and the judiciary, there's what happens after. One, if successfully impeached, the Deputy President could be barred from office going forward permanently. Secondly, there's also the position that is left vacant, that of the Deputy President. Remember, this position is only a heartbeat away from the President. Are we looking at the possibility of having someone who has never had a single vote cast in his name, possibly ascending to become President of this Republic? That could happen. Legally speaking, Akiro, what are the legal implications we're looking at with the impeachment of a Deputy President?
Well, Fred, you see, Parliament, rather the National Assembly, has already made their sentiments that the Deputy President stands impeached. We have the Senate now to vote, not to impeach, but to vote on the impeachment, to either uphold it or to throw it out. Supposing they succeed, then the Deputy President has the option of moving to court. If the court is of the opinion, in their competent setups, that the whole process and the procedures and the grounds are okay, and the court upholds to seal his fate completely, then the deputy president, or Mr. Rigathi Gachagua as at that time, will stand barred from holding any public office in the country or running for public office, elective office, by Chapter 6 of the Constitution. That is the issue on integrity. However, there are also rumors, unconfirmed rumors, which are possible politically, because whether or not he is barred from running or holding any public office, is still a citizen of the country. And there are those who will be still holding him out with high regard, who would simply swing his side and support another side, which maybe may give him private support in terms of businesses and raising his life. And there are this possibility, Fred, which I don't know, but may play out, because Kenya is a nation of a lot of mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
They say that the deliver might not even take time, because there is this region that, although they also voted a greater number against the impeachment, and others also voted for the impeachment, what is in the heart that is boiling can easily be galvanized into a unified, solid wall.
Mm-hmm.
And if the other that was brought into this fold by the president's side also decides to unshake the hand and come this side, we will have a region cornered. And they could simply tell Dereva, Shukia Hapa. you see that, that is also a possibility. But then you see, when it comes to the vacancy in the seat of the deputy president, this is where my view of the position of the deputy president in the country stands. Whereas the initial or inaugural holder of that position has to be elected along with the president, my whole view in terms of reading the intentions of the drafters of the Constitution is that the position is wholly nominative or appointive.
Really?
Yeah. Because the next, if you read Article 149 of the Constitution, in terms of filling that position, the president will simply appoint, parliament vote is held, he holds office. We're not going to go for an election for a new deputy president.
Yes.
So then, if that is the position, and the initial position also is that any person wishing to run for the office of the president shall nominate a deputy who shall appear with him in the ballot. So the issue here is he has been nominated by the president. That although they are voted or elected together, the intention, the contemplated intention here is that the number two is nominated. By who? Not by the people. Nominated by the president, and by virtue that the election is happening, put them together. Let's elect. Now, if a vacancy appears, we are not taken to elections. We are told, President, just as you nominated the one we have impeached, please nominate another one, but now we're not going for elections. Once he has passed the qualitative and the quantitative analysis as by Chapter 6 of the Constitution, he shall hold office.
Yes.
And that is why, being a nominative position, he has no hiring and firing powers. Look, commissions have authority to hire and fire. Even the president has authority to hire and fire. But the deputy president's position has no that authority.
Okay. And probably that's the most comfortable option for a president, to have a deputy president that did not have to go through elections with him, who cannot claim any shareholding, if you may use that word, in the presidency. Politically, this is going to have a lot of implications, especially over the next 3 years as we head towards 2027. Of course, there's a lot has been talked about the position and the support from the Mount Kenya region and where it will go. Do you think that that is a real risk for the president, that whoever he names as deputy president will determine a lot when it comes to 2027?
Whoever he nominates as his deputy will have the same rights, regardless of how he came or she came to the office of a DP who has gone through an election. And, because we were looking at what do we expect going forward, the deputy president, the current deputy president, is a politician. So if he is interested in going ahead as a public person, in public office or in politics, if the Senate pronounces that he's impeached, he shall stand impeached. He will only have a chance in court. So if he had a chance to resign, this would be the right time to resign, because he has already read the mood of the elected members. And the same mood that is in the National Assembly, I can bet, is the same mood that is in the Senate, because this mood is created by political parties. And the political parties that are in Parliament, in the National Assembly, are the same political parties that are in the Senate. So because right now, he feels I am justified, I have facts, and these facts should exonerate me. And I don't think those two houses are looking at those facts. They are looking at politics behind it. They are looking at the instructions that they have been given by their party leaders and many other factors, but not the facts that he's presenting. So if at the end of the day, the court is not able to get a reprieve from the courts, then he will no longer be the deputy president. He will never be able to occupy any public office, and he will go into political oblivion like Murungi went. From when he left politics, I think in 1967, we never heard of him. In fact, even when he died in 1990, nobody even,
How would that affect the Mount Kenya support for President Ruto, if at all Rigathi Gachagua is successfully impeached and stands no chance of seeking any elective seats going forward?
Rigathi Gachagua was not very popular in Mount Kenya. And he came to be known in Mount Kenya because of the fight that he put as an as an UDA member. If you remember, it was Rigathi Gachagua who really demonized the name of Uhuru Kenyatta in Mount Kenya, when they were doing campaign. And by the time he sat on his seat as a deputy president, he started becoming unpopular because he continued with the same fight even when he was the deputy president. And people would have expected that now that you have gotten power, it's time to reconcile, it's time to bring peace, it's time to put people together. But he continued fighting Raila, he continued fighting Uhuru, that did not make him very popular within the Mount Kenya region. But when he turned around and apologized to the Kenyattas and also started, fighting for people in Mount Kenya, his popularity started coming up. But when the government now started fighting him, he earned a lot of sympathy he earned a lot of sympathy from the public. And people started translating his fight from the powers that be as fight against the people of the mountain. And I think this is what really, broke the camel's back as far as his relationship with the president are concerned, because it's like, when he came to power, unlike the coalition between Uhuru and Ruto in the 2012, when they formed URP, came together with TNA and formed
Jubilee.
Not Jubilee. Jubilee came in 2027. They formed a coalition. A coalition in 2013, and this coalition, Ruto brought with him his following, which was quite massive. Uhuru brought with him quite a big following, and they put this together, and this became a very strong base for their politics. Come to 2022, you know, President Ruto had formed in his political life a very strong following. Rigathi Gachagua had only experience in Madeira from 2017 to 2015. He had not yet cut a national image, but he had shown his political prowess in Juja by-election, and he has shown his political might in Kiambaa. And I think this is how he was able to bargain to the position he had in as a deputy president. So when he sat in that position, now he started trying to amass, you know, a political capital from Mount Kenya by trying to persuade and to do politics in Mount Kenya so that he can also get a political base. And I think this did not augur very well with those who already had their own political capital. And to me, this is the cause of his problems. Okay. So going forward, because I can see this is impeachment is going to go through, he have said he's not going to resign. So Senate most likely is going to impeach him. So he has only one reprieve, the court. So if the court does not go by his wishes, then we must expect another deputy president.
End of the road?
It will be the end of the road for him. So I'll be expecting a call maybe from State House appointing me as the new deputy president.
Congratulations,
you know, it could.
But
it
Fred,
could be. Let me finish. It could be anybody.
Yes, yes.
It could be Kidiki. It could be Waiguru, who the day before yesterday resigned as the chair of the County of Governors.
No, her term ended.
Her term ended.
She did.
Yeah, but she could have gone for another term. But
No. It's capped.
It's for only one term.
Yeah, 2 terms.
So we as public saw it as a preparation for occupying that position. It could be anybody. He doesn't even have to be in UDA. It will now be upon the president to choose a candidate who he thinks will be able to work.
There will be implications of that choice as well, Banosido, because
there will be a lot of political activities also, because once the new deputy president is appointed, we'll start seeing all Thanksgiving parties. Then he will be going to all the places, you know, trying to get a feel. It will be a lot of political activity.
Yes, Banosido.
I see it a little different from what Mheshimiwa says and sees, because remember that the president has outrightly said that for 2027, he is not looking for a male running mate, and the chances that this running mate will come from Mount Kenya are also nil.
Why do you say nil?
Yeah.
Why nil?
No, it's the president who said. And remember that there have been conversations around possible ladies outside Mount Kenya for 2027. But between now and then, what is happening is quite precedental in this sense that one, if it can be true, and the deputy president goes to the mountain and says that this issue of shareholding, by the way I was fighting for you, the way he has continuously said it, then chances of being reclaimed back and using that to build a footstool for someone else, because now for him, failing to resign, because that would have been the best opportunity, and he's now lost it, he cannot run. And using that to be able to convince Mount Kenya in general, despite the divisions that could be there from East, West, Rivachania, conversations, Muranga, Kiambu, and all those things, ceteris paribus, all that, he still stands a chance to go back and coin a narrative that then is able to convince certain regions, particularly Mount Kenya, to actually stand by him. On the flip side is also the manner in which the conversations were going on at the National Assembly. Remember, not as many quote-unquote Kikuyu parliamentarians actually spoke on the impeachment of the deputy president. There were almost, I think, less than 4, if not just 2. That is also telling against the kind of uproar that we saw on the public participation conversations. It was only up to the vote, and has been shared on our newspapers, that we heard them saying yes, no, and now we know who voted for yes and who voted for no, which again will have political ramifications from Mount Kenya based on how the deputy president is able to coin this particular occurrence and use it politically. But in terms of looking at the gains, the losers and the winners, I think the deputy president needs to retreat back and ask himself, what is it that I had as at the point of going into the 2022 elections that is either used or is now voided? And that is where I think Mheshimiwa is addressing, because there must have been something. You don't have to be a 10-term politician or parliamentarian to be a DP. The constitution is very clear around what you need. Even as he says, you were in parliament for how many terms?
10 years.
10 years, yeah. 2 terms. Is that now worth being called by State House and being given a DP? I think anybody can be a deputy president, and the deputy president, upon his impeachment, needs to think through what it is that he had, that UDA as a party and Kenya Kwanza as a coalition saw in him to be fit. Because if he was fit for that time, he needs to ask himself, what is it that President William Ruto needed from me at that point in time? And what is it that I still have that I can still use to build myself? Because that now is a conversation of a politician. And it depends on who is advising him. It depends on what kind of future he is looking at. Because whether the Senate or not, because even senators will be looking at some of those things. For example, an MP who wants to run in 2027 will ask himself, what is the political mileage that voting for Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua can give to me for sustaining his impeachment, or actually for voting against it? Because that is how I think that most of those politicians will be looking at and actually deciding on how to navigate around this particular motion, which is how I think, again, that most of the members of National Assembly actually thought through it. Because if you looked at their body language, if you looked at some of the comments against the evidence, which I think all of us have agreed that did not meet that constitutional threshold of impeachment, then the conversation that Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua should be having is, what is this thing that I still have in my hand? And that really is largely political, other than the legalist. But I also wanted to just make an addition on some of the issues that I think we are being taken over. If you look at the gazettement by the Senate, on Senate Bills number 46 of 2024, we have 19 bills read that require public participation by 25th of October. And part of these bills, about 4 of them, are on the extension of term of president from 5 years to 7 years, extension from term of governor from 5 years to 7 years, extension of term of members of parliament, both National Assembly and Senate, from 5 years to 7 years, and also of MCS. And so this circus that we are being taken through, I think that we still need to get as many Kenyans to be alive and awoke to the realities of issues, because failure to look at what is also going against the over-concentration and the over-investment in this impeachment of Mheshimiwa Gachagua, we stand to have as many losses as we might not imagine.
All right. The expectation is that Senate will also adjourn to make special room for discussing this impeachment motion. But away from the mountain, other Kenyans are also looking, and other parties are also looking at that vacancy, possible vacancy, and they're salivating. And ODM party is one of them that has been accused of lacking behind the shadows like a hyena waiting for a hand to fall off. It is about to fall off in the next few weeks. Other people may lay claim to the position of the second in command. That in itself will have its own consequences politically, even in the short term, don't you think, Bwana Kiro?
Well, Fred, you know, the president of this republic has made innumerable trips to Homa Bay County before and after their bromance with the former prime minister. You understand that unlike other regions, when you talk about Nyanza, particularly Luo Nyanza, any leader who would wish to have good relationship with the ruling party or with the ruling persons must have the blessings of the former prime minister. You see, we've seen this play out in public more and more. The president has expressed his interests sometimes to have the Homa Bay governor as his deputy. That has always been speculated within the corridors and also come out publicly. So you'd say that part of the reasons why maybe he extended the hand is that he had already made up his mind that Gachagua must go, then he gets somebody. We've also seen Tifa putting up some polls on the other choices, and among them includes the current Prime CS, that is for Western. We understand that he is not lost for choice, and sometimes he might even as well bring in somebody from Rift Valley. You know, he's not spoiled for choice, and the law doesn't bar him from doing so. However, for his political health, let me term it as political health, he needs to be very careful with the mountain and make sure that he finds a way of appeasing the mountain. Whereas I've seen other people from the mountain saying, mukimutoa in Swahili, musitupatie ingine, just let the mountain heal in peace. I saw that Bahati,
former Bahati MP.
The former Bahati MP. He was like appeasing. And by the way, I would appeal to the country to look at how Mount Kenya has played around this whole issue. Because in some other places, Nyanza, Rift Valley, would be seeing some arrows flying in the air, some stones being thrown somewhere. But, you know, while coming this morning, just passing by most of the Mount Kenya regions, things are overly peaceful. Actually, my landlord, so to say, is from Mount Kenya and greets me in the morning and asks me, Unenda wapi? Like, I'm going to work, and say, go well. Like, that kind of peace from the people of Mount Kenya really needs to be a serious classroom for the rest of the regions. So the president, in terms of galvanizing his second bid for the presidency, needs to be very, very careful with this vacancy.
All right. Final comments, Bonajun Joma, as we come to the end.
As we come to the end, we have gone through a very hectic political time, and I hope that our political temperatures are going to go down, because really this is not the way to develop our country. We must refocus on development. And it is very, very sad that we are going to politically where we were before the Gen Z demonstrations. I hope that the president will get somebody they can be able to work with, because it looks like the Gachagua deal has already been done. To me, I think with what we saw in Parliament, it's going to happen in Senate, and he has stood his ground. He's not going to resign. If you remember, there have been several cases that were put down in, several people went to court to try and stop the impeachment. It didn't happen. And what happened in Embu was just saying that public participation must be approached from constituency level. So I think it's time we stopped politicking and started developing our country, because that is exactly what we need.
All right. Bonosid.
I want to request that we stop the abductions. We still see people being abducted up to yesterday and the day before. It is important that we allow the government to deliver on its mandate, and that these sideshows that we are continuously seeing every day that erode public trust in the government. I don't think it is in the interest of President William Ruto that citizens continue to distrust his government. He has had a very good opportunity, and Kenyans still believe that he has a very good opportunity to deliver on the mandate that he accepted and agreed that he was going to deliver on. We want to ask Kenyans to continue being woke. A lot is happening in our country. Those who can pray, please keep praying. Whether prayers work or not, I believe prayers work and that something happens when you pray. But for those who can push for advocacy, for anti-corruption, for issues of ethnicity, let us continue to push as we seek to build a better Kenya for this and for future generations.
Okay.
God bless you.
Finally, Wakili, your parting shot.
Well, I would want to appreciate Kenyans actually for the peace during this whole impeachment processes, and call upon Kenyans that we proceed to live in peace. We continue to exercise restraint and continue to give processes and procedures time. And then also to call upon members of the Senate to be able to understand that we are setting precedents as a country, and we need a clean precedence that will go a long way in putting our country into the global map in terms of upholding the rule of law, impartiality, and constitutionalism. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Silas Akiro, Advocate of the High Court, June Jomo, former MP Kiambu Town, and Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, for your time at TV47 and helping us understand what we are going through and what to expect in the coming days. I can see one comment here. Peter Mobisa is saying, could the panelists throw more light on how the swearing in of the would-be new DP will be done, considering the fact that normally he or she does it alongside the president as a running mate? Already Kenyans have moved on to the swearing in of the deputy president. But Peter, do stand by and keep watching TV.
That will be the list of progress.
Yes. Keep watching Morning Cafe, and we will be telling you more about the procedure to be followed for this and others. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for that. Shortly, we'll be going to outside Nairobi to try and gauge the sentiments of many Kenyans. Yesterday, what happened in the National Assembly happened late into the night, and many Kenyans maybe did not get to vent or to ventilate on their reactions to the same. We'll be getting views from across the country. For now, let's go back to the National Assembly and sample some of the views of, as expressed by members as they debated this motion of impeachment.
The point at which I differed with His Excellency the Deputy President is when he started talking about Mlima. I realized Laikipia County is not Mlima after all, because Mlima, people have running water from taps. In Mlima, people have tarmac roads. In Mlima, people don't suffer human-wildlife conflicts. But in Laikipia County, we have all those challenges. So, Honorable Speaker, that was the first point where we differed. The second point, Your Honorable Speaker, is when there was the talk of 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. In Laikipia County, we are among the counties that have the least population. When you talk of 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, it means you're talking of reduction on resources for my people. That one I would not accept. Honorable Speaker, I remain a Kikuyu, but sadly, since our difference in opinion with His Excellency the Deputy President, I have been the poster girl of his intimidation, of his insults, of his blackmail, of his coercion, telling me that I should not engage the national government, that I should not follow up for resources for my people. Honorable Speaker, once in a while, a generation is called upon to stand for something. Today, I stand for an end to insult, a respect to the dignity of leaders, a respect to my people, Honorable Speaker.
Give her a minute. Give her, okay, wind up.
Honorable Speaker, in my conclusion, I must state, many people have called us traitors, have assumed money has been received for this action. But Honorable Speaker, I want to make it very clear. I need no money for the restoration of dignity in this house. I need no money for the restoration of respect to women in this house. I need no money for resources to reach my people of Laikipia County. Honorable Speaker, I submit and I support. Thank you.
Oundo.
I want to say that even when he addressed those money issues, there are very patent gaps going to constitutional violations which are stated in the motion to be gross. I expected the Deputy President, for instance, to use the opportunity you accorded him, Honorable Speaker, to explain that SMS which came from his son Ikunu Gachagua on the bid bond issue involving that company. No mention of that at all. Honorable Speaker, before I go to the matters I want to address in substance, let me thank you, the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, for ensuring that the process this House is going through has been very fair. And in doing so, Honorable Speaker, for according and upholding and protecting the provisions of Article 47 of the Constitution. I hear people still saying that the courts will intervene. But I'm thanking you for this, Honorable Speaker, because the only time the courts intervene is if we have not secured a party procedural fairness. This motion was advertised across the country for the participation of Kenyans. And Honorable Speaker, allow me to reiterate this short data in 1 minute. 146,429 Kenyans said that the Deputy President should be impeached. And that, Honorable Speaker, constitutes 65.11% of the people of Kenyans. 76,026 of Kenyans said the Deputy President should not be impeached, coming to 33.8% of those Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, 2,452 Kenyans said Kufa Makanga, Kufa Dereva, and those other things. And there are the others. And Honorable Speaker, in terms of our constituency, which is Homa Bay Town constituency, 1,080 Kenyans whom I represent said the Deputy President should be impeached. And Honorable Speaker, that constitutes 89.81% of the population of the people of Homa Bay who are duly notified. 54 Kenyans in Homa Bay Town constituency, constituting 5%, said the Deputy President should not be impeached. And then 56, which is another percentage there, said other things, including Kufa driver, Kufa Makanga. Honorable Speaker, let me clarify this other issue also. That the courts have persistently and consistently said that public participation must be meaningful. If public participation should be meaningful, and Honorable Speaker, you made it so open, at the county headquarters involving all constituencies, and then all constituency offices remained open on that day, and you notified it to the public, Honorable Speaker, following that order of court, then really, there is nothing much for us to continue debating here. If public participation is to be meaningful, then the Kenyans have spoken. And as their representatives, we can only give meaning to what they say during public participation by securing what they have said, which is that the Deputy President should be impeached. Honorable Speaker, because I'm running fast, let me say that.
All right, that was Peter Kaluma, MP, Homa Bay, yesterday, contributing to the debate on the impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Before that was Jane Kagiri Wangeshi, the woman representative for Laikipia County. Now we want to sample some views of residents of Naivasha town on what they feel about the impeachment of the Deputy President. And we cross over to my colleague, Willie Dennis Njiru. A very good morning to you, Willie Dennis. What are the people of Naivasha saying today? Willie Dennis, good morning. I can see you. It's quite sunny in Naivasha this morning. What are the people of Naivasha saying about the impeachment of the Deputy President yesterday?
Thank you, Fred. Actually, it's a hot day here in Naivasha, unlike it has been the previous days. But unlike the weather is hot, The political temperatures are equally hot following what happened in the August House last evening. And of course, I have a few of the locals, Naivasha, here who are going to be giving their views in regard to what happened. But what has come up is that they were given papers to fill and give their public opinion, but that was not considered during the debate that we saw yesterday. Without taking much time, I have a lady who is going to be telling me her name and what she has to say about this. Jina lako?
Jina naitwa Grace Nyambura kutoka Naivasha, Nakuru County. Mimi pia ni mvuvi katika Lake Naivasha na pia advocate wa good governance. Maoni yangu kuhusiana na impeachment ambayo imefanyiwa. Kwanza tuko na makasiriko ground kwa sababu walifanya kazi kubwa sana ya public participation ambayo hatukuona iko considered kwa ile impeachment. La pili ni kwamba uongozi ambao tumeona ama ile vote ambayo inapigwa pale ni kama ni kusukumiwa, watu wamesukumiwa wafanye lile jambo, ni kwa sababu ile maoni walikuwa wanatoa, hayo maoni haonekani ikiwa na maana sana. Kwa hivyo hiyo impeachment ya deputy president sisi kama ground hatukubaliani kabisa nayo, na hiyo sisemi kitu, lakini naona kuna mkono mahari imeguza, because all the MPs hata wale ambao hawakutoa maoni yao walisukumana laini kwenda kuvote ya kwamba deputy president akuwe impeach. Sisi maoni yetu tunasema kama kawaida, kuva dereva kuva makanga. Tunagojea Senate kama ita impeach deputy president, but we believe hiyo nyumba kubwa ni nyumba ya wazee wetu na watatoa maamuzi yao kulingana na sheria na vile inavyostahili. So tuko na hope kubwa sana na Senate msituangushe. Asante.
Asante. Wacha tusikie mwingine hapa. Ndugu, nieleze jina lako na utueleze maoni yako kuhusiana na swala hili.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Steven Njoroge. Maoni yangu ni kuwa pale bunge tulituma wabunge waende wakilishe sisi. Hatukuwa tuma tu, but tuliwapatia maoni yetu kwa njia ya public participation, but kulingana na vile tuliona ile njia walifuata si yenye tulikuwa tumewatuma. Hawakupatiana zile vitu tulijaza, hatukuona hata moja. Afadhali wangetoa moja tuone kweli wametuwakilisha. Waliwakilisha mambo yao. Sasa sisi tunasema tutaendelea tu kungojea Senate tunaamua ya kwamba watafanya haki kulingana na vile ground inasema. Maoni yangu ni hayo tu.
Wacha tusikie ndugu mwingine hapa. Ndugu, karibia hapo, tueleze jina lako na utueleze maoni yako kuhusiana na yale ambayo yaliendelea jana.
Mimi kwa majina naitwa Peter Kamaru ama Peter Kariuki. Mimi ni mhudumu wa matatu hapa. Uwezi sema ati tulichagua Gachagua wakiwa na president. Kwa hivyo uwezi tafuta kitu ukiwa na bibi wa kwanza, alafu unalete bibi wa pili na mnatafuta vitu na bibi wa ule wa kwanza. Alafu juu Gachagua amekuja, unakuja kulete maneno ati hii vitu ule bibi mlitafuta na yeye hawezi gawa. Kwa hivyo sisi tunataka kusema kama Gachagua ameenda, hata yeye ameenda. Gari ya 14 kuna shato kuna gari, tuseme kama hapa tunawekaga gari za shato na kuna zingine za 14. Gari ya 14 iwezi enda na dereva peke yake. Wanafaa kama ni kufutwa wafutwe kazi wote, kama ni kuenda waende wawili, kwa sababu
lakini makosa ilikuwa kwa mmoja.
Makosa iko kwa wawili, tuseme hivyo. Juu hata yeye alinyamaza wakati wa bill. Sasa mimi kitu yangu ile nasema sina imani na hii serikali. Kama ni kuenda waende wawili. Na sina maneno.
Wacha tusikie mzee mwingine hapa. Mzee, karibia hapa, unieleza maoni yako. Sasa naibu rais ameshaondolewa na bunge. Matumaini yako wapi? Songa hivi.
Mimi nasema kulingana na vile kwa majina anaitwa Ayubu ama Masai. Kulingana na maoni yangu, huyu mzee hata ukikumbuka kuna wakati alisema nimeona giza. Na huyo mzee alikuwa ameanza kuona vile inaendelea katika serikali, na sababu ni truthful man. Hakuwa anataka kitu ambacho kinaenda chini ya maji ili waweze kukula serikali. Vile ambapo huyu mzee alianza kushukiwa ati hapelekani na serikali, ni wakati labda unaona kama Jomo Kenyatta inataka kuuzwa. Yeye anakataana na mambo hiyo sababu hataki kupakwa matope juu ya corruption. Ukiangalia kama wakati matatu zilikuwa zinaondolewa katika mji wa Nairobi, alisema hata wakati yeye alikuwa kijana, alikuwa naenda Tiruba na chukulia gari huko, akakataa matatu ziondolewe katika CBD. Unaona? Juzi niliona akisimama na watu wa Marikiti. Walikuwa wanataka kuuza Marikiti, watu waende huko Kagudo Road. Iko haja gani mwananchi ateseke? Na mwananchi ndio aliweza kuwaingiza katika hicho kiti. Tuliwaingiza katika ile kiti waweze kutugandamiza ama watuletee maendeleo, mwananchi apate nafuu. Hiyo ni mambo ambayo haiwezekani. Sasa sababu wanataka kumbandua. Sasa katika Kenya hii tuko hatarini sababu hakuna wakati tutakuwa tunawakataza kukula Kenya hii yetu. Kwa hivyo yule hata ataletwa pale ni yule akiambiwa saini hapa anasema yes sir. So Kenya tuko hatarini. So kama Gachagua atatoka, watoke wote wawili sababu wote tuliwachagua wakiwa pamoja. So sioni kama tutapata nafuu katika nchi Kenya yetu.
Wacha tumepata jamaa barubaru hapa, songa mbele kidogo, nieleze jina lako, mambo ya impeachment ya naibu rais sasa utasema vipi? Tunamalizia.
Mimi nikiweza sema,
jitambulishe kwanza.
Kwa majina naitwa Leonard. Mimi naweza sema kwa hao watu wote tu waondoke. Hakuna haja waache mmoja hapo na waliingia wote.
Na naibu rais alitoa semi kali sana akisema kwamba kulikuwa na mambo ya yale ambayo amesababisha yeye ikiwa ni yale ya kutetea mraia na pia kuna mashtaka upande huu mwingine. Tathmini yako upande zote mbili, wewe ungesema nini kuhusiana na maoni yako?
Hapo sina kusema hapo.
Asante, nashukuru sana kwa muda wako. There you go, that is Naivasha residents giving their views in regard to what happened yesterday, but they still hold on with skepticism that maybe when this ascends to the Senate, something is going to come. So we can say we have about 2 hurdles before it is all said and done. That is the Senate and the courts who are going to make actually the final verdict in what is going to happen about his fate as a deputy president of this country, happening for the first time since independence. That is it from me on the side of the Rift Valley in Nakuru County, that is in Naivasha. I take it back to you, and my name is Willie Dennis Njiru.
Well, indeed, Willie Dennis Njeri coming all the way from Naivasha with the views of citizens there with regard to the impeachment of the deputy president, which is indeed the biggest discussion this morning on all the dailies. End of the road, they ask on the Star. That's a big story. I'm looking even on the Business Daily. They have a photo of the deputy president when he appeared before the National Assembly. How Gachagua was cornered is a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. The Standard simply goes with the headline, impeached. If I may take a look at the other headlines, very interesting. Even the cartoons today just simply talking about what's happening with the deputy president. Wabunge wa mrarua ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Taifa Leo, wakizungumzia jinsi naibu wa rais alijitetea vikali akidai alifuata nyayo za bosi wake Rais Ruto kuwakemea watumishi waliopotoka. Ni akijaribu tu kujitetea mbele ya wabunge. People Daily went to the headline, the fall of a tribal chief. Still talking about historic impeachment motion, and now saying that Gachagua's fate now lies in the Senate as he stares at political ignominy after lawmakers vote to kick him out of office. We continue sampling some views from citizens across the country. Let's now head to Kisii, where my colleague Alfayo Kombo is. Alfayo Kombo, good morning. Bring us up to speed with what's happening in Kisii, and what are the people of Kisii saying with regard to this impeachment of the deputy president? Alfayo, over to you. Alfayo, if you can hear me, I can see you already have a crowd behind you. Would like to know what exactly you're talking about with regard to the impeachment of the deputy president yesterday. Quite some enthusiasm. Yes, go ahead, Bwana Alfayo.
Thank you very much, Indemuli. I can get you very well from these sides of Nyamira County, whereby I'm with, as you can see behind me, these are residents from Nyamira County who are ready to take part in this public to give us sentiments. What do they feel about what happened yesterday when Rigathi Gachagua was impeached with the 281 votes that were casted by the MPs that were voted yesterday. I can welcome you here. Pengine tuambie wewe maoni yako ni yapi kuhusiana kubanduliwa kwa Gachagua hapo jana?
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Mung'are Keno kutoka hapa Silvering State kwa bunge la mwananchi Nyamira County. Mimi kitu nilikuwa nasema Gachagua ana heshima na mkubwa wake. Gachagua ameonyesha yeye akona ukabila mingi, anasema mlima na mlima sio mlima pekee ilichagua president wetu William Samoei Ruto. Kenya mzima watu walipigia William Samoei Ruto wengi kura. Lakini Gachagua sasa ni ile anasema mlima. Mimi nasema Gachagua atume nyumbani. Venye wa MP wamepiga impeachment, wamemtuma nyumbani 281 na tunaongojea Senate. Senator wetu kutoka hapa Nyamira County Okongo Mogeni, senior council commissioner. Na yeye tunataka atume huyo Gachagua nyumbani. Kuna watu wengi wanavaa kuchukua hiyo kiti ya deputy president, kina wamama hapo, Gladys Wanga huko, Ani Waiguru yuko, Kindiki yuko hapo. Watu ni wengi. Hata mnasapea hiyo Okongo Mogeni ama mtoletea Matiang'i aingia hapo kwa serikali. Kwani kuna nini? Gachagua aende nyumbani.
Pengine tuweze kupata mkazi huyu atueleze.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Robert Avuga from Nyamira County. So mimi nilikuwa nasema hii Kenya hakuna mtu mzuri. Hii Kenya watu ni wale hata ukisema ulete huyu mwingine ulete huyu bado ni ile Kenya. So that mimi nilikuwa naomba hawa watu wote waje waendelee na kazi amalize 5 yake tena 5 ishe story nyingine iende. So that Kenya sasa ukisema mkitoa Gachagua next mtatoa nani sasa next? So that watu wote ni mada shida, hakuna mtu mzuri Kenya. Mimi sina mengi. Mimi si kisina maneno mengi. Mimi nataka watu wafanye kazi wapakie pamoja. Hata kwa nyumba watu waende kwa nyumba, watu wanasikizana. So that mimi nasema yangu Gachagua acha rudi kazini, lakini na yeye achunga maneno yake, achue kama mzee alekepise Kenya.
Naam, asante sana. Pia tuweze kupata huyu naye, songa tu hapa mbele kidogo.
Asante sana. Kwa majina naitwa Masira Choshwa kutoka hii kaunti ya Nyamira. Ningependa kusema hii dunia kunachua kila mtu akona makosa yake. Kama Gachagua alikosea wangemwambia amekosea, alekebishe yale ambayo amefanya. Lakini sasa wakianza kusema wamtoe, ni wengi ambao wako kwa serikali ambao wamefanya maovu wao, mbona wao waulizwe yale ambayo wanafanya. Nataka kusema kama kiasi kimoja kimeosea kwa gunia, tutoe viazi yote, tugurete viazi vingine ili tuone nchi inaendelea.
Je, unahisi kwamba seneti maamuzi wakati waliweza kumtoa, matarajio yako ni yapi wakati wanaelekea katika seneti?
Ningependa tukienda seneti wa seneta na wao waone Gachagua kama alifanya makosa, wasimtoe wamwache huko ili alekebishe yale ambayo amefanya. Hata ukiangalia wakati Ruto alikuwa na uhuru na yeye alikuwa anafanya mambo ambayo yako masuli, hawakumchukulia hatua wamtoe. Mbona yeye sasa anaambia wengine wamtoe, na yeye tuliangalia huko nyumbani alikuwa anafanya mabaya, lakini sasa wakianza kumtoa huko, mimi naona wamefanya vibaya kumtoa. Wangemwacha yake alafu alekebishe.
Thank you very much, Indemuli. As you have just those are the few sentiments of residents from here in Nyamira County. Most of them feel that Rigathi Gachagua should remain in the seat, and they are asking the Senate to be able to see mercy to Rigathi Gachagua so that he be able to remain and complete the term that they have, so that he may see what to do next. I don't have much to say, but remember that we'll be following this news in order to update our viewers in our subsequent bulletin. I don't have much to say, but pass the mantle back to you in studio in Nairobi. Friend Indemuli.
Thank you so much, Alfayo Kombo, coming to us from Nyamira County with the views of some of the residents there with regard to the impeachment motion against the Deputy President, which was successfully passed before the National Assembly. 281 members of the National Assembly voting for that motion. Only 44 members voted against, with about 1 abstention. Well, we'll continue looking at this story and a lot more. For now, let's take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe, only a few hours, about 12 or so hours after the impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in the National Assembly. The process now moves to the Senate, but before that, quite a number of reactions, a lot of reactions across the country. We now want to move to Nyeri County, which is a home of Rigathi Gachagua, Karatina, Madeira. Our reporter, William Moige, is actually in Nyeri right now. William, good morning. I saw you were involved in some unfortunate incident with the police yesterday night as you covered the reactions in Nyeri immediately after members of the National Assembly voted for this motion. I hope you are okay. Kindly bring us up to speed with what's happening on your end.
Well, good morning to you, Fred. Quite an unfortunate event yesterday evening while we were trying to do some live coverage to get some reactions of residents and also the people of Karatina, that is in Madeira constituency. But as things will go, it turned very chaotic for us, and even one of our colleagues, that is Sam Kiere, got injured in the chaotic situation. Well, we were doing a live link, and we were supposed to also do a live link with you this morning, but we are unable to do that. That is why we are doing a phone link this morning. Reason because police officers or people who we believe are police officers are still confiscating our equipment, that is a camera. This happened while we were doing the live link because we had seen officers in uniform, 3 of them, clearing the Nairobi-Nyeri highway because some youth, maybe not pleased by the decision of the parliament, were trying actually to barricade the road with the tires and also burning some of them. And these 3 police officers in uniform contained the situation actually, and they cleared the road and the traffic started flowing. But no sooner than later, 2 minutes later, an unmarked silver Subaru vehicle came in high speed, swerving in the road to the junction that is Karatina Junction, a road that leads to Karatina town and Nyeri and Nairobi Highway. And it is at that moment things really escalated. So these people, there were 4 to 5 men who came out of that vehicle. They were not uniformed officers, but that vehicle had these blue siren lights that were placed on top of the vehicle, and it was unmarked, no number plate. So men in civilian came out of that vehicle with batons, and some, I think 2 of them were armed with guns, started clearing traders who were at that particular junction, and they were telling them to go home. And while trying to update our viewers on what was really happening, that the police are here and more people who are not in police uniform had also joined in to quell the situation. It is at that moment an officer from behind attacked our camera person, Christine Wanjiru, and also tried to snatch the camera, but they managed to do that. And it is in that situation, our driver and also Christine were really, really injured, but we took some to the hospital. The situation was managed. Fred.
It is sad, and we'd like to wish cameraman, your camera person, Christine Wanjiru, a quick recovery as well as a driver. So what is the situation on the ground this morning as we speak?
All right, as we speak, the same situation as yesterday, some tense moment. A majority of residents are really not pleased with the events of Parliament yesterday night. And while we were traveling to the hospital yesterday night, we saw quite a number of places between Karatina and Nyeri, fires and also tires, a section of the road being barricaded. That was around midnight, almost 1 a.m. The situation as of now here in Nyeri, still, you having a conversation with one or two of the residents, they are not pleased by the decision that Parliament had made. Still maintaining that, Parliament was biased towards Brigadier Gachagua, and really they did not prosecute the substantive matters case by case. It was a political move rather than a constitution or a legal issue. So what they're saying, a majority of them, is that this whole matter that is facing Deputy President Brigadier Gachagua is not legal. Neither does it have head or tail, but political witch hunt. Fred.
And as far as the security situation is concerned, you talked about a lot of police presence yesterday night, immediately after the voting in the National Assembly. Is that the same situation as we speak? Are there more police officers on the ground in Nyeri and maybe Karatina this morning?
Well, true indeed. We also managed yesterday night to see, while touring Nyeri town, a number of police officers, some in the police, well-marked police cars, some not in police cars, using private vehicles to move around. But the situation this morning is quite different. We have not seen a heavy contingent of police moving around Nyeri town. But what we are getting is that information is quite a number of police officers have been deployed within Karatina just to manage, not to manage the situation, but to monitor the situation in Karatina, because as we left Karatina, things were quite tense as of yesterday. Fred.
Thank you so much, William. William Moige, my colleague, covering the impeachment of the Deputy President from Karatina and Nyeri County. They encountered some police officers yesterday, and part of the equipment was confiscated and damaged. A number of our teams members of our team were injured, including camera person Christine Wanjiru. We wish a quick recovery, as well as our driver. And William, we wish you well, and we ask you to stay safe. Yes, tense moments in Karatina and the larger Nyeri town immediately after the voting process inside the National Assembly yesterday evening. And even this morning, reports are that heavy police presence has been witnessed in both Karatina, where Madeira is situated, and the larger Nyeri County, especially in Nyeri town. Yes, so that's the situation from that end. We'll be joining my colleague Chichi Josephine in Nakuru. Do we have Chichi? Yes, let's go now to Nakuru, where Chichi Josephine, my colleague, is on the ground. Chichi, a very good morning to you. Kindly bring us up to speed with what the people of Nakuru are saying following that impeachment of the Deputy President in the National Assembly yesterday. It is an unprecedented decision that definitely has elicited a lot of reactions across the country. What are the people of Nakuru saying this morning? Chichi, good morning. If you can hear me, bring us up to speed with what the people of Nakuru are saying with regard to the impeachment of the Deputy President yesterday by the National Assembly. Chichi, over to you. It is clear that Chichi cannot get me. Chichi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Well, Fred, thank you so much. And yes, in Nakuru County, it's quite a calm morning. But remember that for majority of Nakurans that have been able to talk to, or rather had an opportunity to speak to this morning, they are just expressing their dissatisfaction with the outcome of the historic vote that attained a two-third threshold of 281 members of parliament who voted against Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and of course having him impeached from office. And therefore, I am just here, just at the center, or rather the CBD, the Nakuru CBD, just to get to hear the views of Kenyans in regards to this and how they feel about this whole thing. Remember, the National Assembly yesterday voted 281 votes, was voted yes to having Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua impeached, and 44 of them having Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua rather voting against him being impeached. But I am here just to get to hear from Kenyans on what they have to say in regards to the same. Wacha nitangulize nawe, labda wakati ambapo tuliweza kuona bunge la kitaifa likiweza kutoa ama likiweza kumng'atua mamlakani yule ambaye ni naibu wa rais Rigathi Gachagua. Je, kama Mkenya na labda wewe ulihitaji aende ama asiende, unahisi vipi?
Okay, ninawasalimu wote. Majina yangu naitwa Patrick Increase. Na nataka niweze kusema ya kwamba hapa kwa ground hatujafurahi hata kidogo. Hatujafurahia kwa sababu wajumbe wetu hawakutusikiliza. Na kazi moja na jukumu ya kila mjumbe ni kuwakilisha maoni ya wananchi kutoka kwa ground. Na just the other day we had tuliweza kutoa ile public participation na tukatoa maoni yetu. But it seems ya kwamba it was just a sham exercise because they went and did their own things. Yeah, they are voting here over yes. It was not they didn't represent us. Hawakutuwakilisha maoni yetu. Na nataka niweze kusema hivi, misingi ya mambo ambayo waliweza kuwekelea Deputy President Gachagua, the whole thing was political. Hakuna mambo ya kusaidia mwananchi. Walileta zile maneno zote na miswada zote kwa misingi ya kisiasa. Wametofautiana kisiasa, na sisi kama ground tunafahamu na tunavyoelewa ni ya kwamba hawamtaki Deputy President kwa sababu kuna matakwa na mambo ambayo anakataana na wao. Na ndio sababu wanamtoa, sababu anakataa kucompromise, ndio waendelee kukula hili taifa letu, waendelee kuliuza, na hivyo sio vizuri hata kidogo. So hatujafurahia.
Na labda sasa tunangoja Seneti, labda wakati ambapo mjadala ule utakuwa ukijadiliwa, labda wasia moja ama utasema vipi kwa Seneti wakati ambapo utakuwa kijadili kuhusiana na kumng'atua naibu wa rais?
Tungependa kama wananchi na Wakenya kutoa malilio yetu kwa Senate. Senate is the upper house. Na tukiomba ya kwamba mkasimame na haki na mkasikie malilio yetu ya kwamba impeachment ya Rigathi Gachagua iko kinyume na mapenzi na matakwa na maoni ya wananchi. Na kwa hivyo nataka niweze kusema ya kwamba sikubaliane kamwe na mambo ambayo na tabia ambayo wabunge wetu walifanya. Ingekuwa kamili hiyo impeachment kama ingebeba Ruto mwenyewe na Gachagua, kama angekuwa naenda wote wawili, kuva bakanga na kuva dereva, lakini kutoa moja tunakataa. Senate, mkatusikilize tafadhali. You are the upper house, tunawaamini. Do what is needful. No Gachagua, no Ruto.
Na shukrani. Kauli yako kuhusiana na swala ambalo liweze kuendelea hapo jana, je, wewe utasema kufa makanga kufa dereva ama vipi?
Asante sana. Kwanza majina yangu naitwa Edward Kamau Kaido, ambaye ni mkazi wa Bahati constituency, Kiamaina ward. Sisi kama Wanakuru kiti ya kwanza tumekasirika sana na wabunge wetu wa National Assembly of Kenya kwa sababu majukumu ambayo tuliwatuma waende wakafanye pale. Sisi hatukutuma mbunge wetu ama wabunge wetu kwenda bunge kwenda kuimpeach Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Tuliwatuma waende wakatufanyie kazi, lakini wametuonyesha mambo kinyume jinsi ambayo tulikuwa tunatarajia. Juzi hapa watu walizunguka hapa watu wakisema ya kwamba tutoe maoni yetu, na sisi wana Nakuru na Bahati constituency tulisema hakuna impeachment ya Rigathi Gachagua, na tuliamua kutoka pale mwanzo tukasema kuva dereva kuva makanga, kuva dereva kuva wa Makanga. Tunataka kukumbusha rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya ambaye ni William Ruto ya kwamba walichaguliwa tiketi moja wakiwa na mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua, na ndio wananchi wa Nakuru wameamua kwa kauli moja ya kwamba kama ni kwenda wanaenda wote. Na niwakumbushe ya kwamba sisi watu wa mlima tumesimama imara, tumesimama kidete, hatungatuki na hatubanduki. Tumesimama na mtoto wetu wa mlima Joyfully Rigathi Gachagua, na tunasema no Gachagua no Ruto, no Gachagua no Ruto. Nataka niwakumbushe watu wa Nakuru ya kwamba sisi tuko katika Rift Valley na tulipiga kura nyingi sana kwa naibu wa rais na rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Nataka kukumbusha Ruto, mimi singepigia Ruto kura kama singeona jina ya Gachagua. Kwa hivyo akumbuke hata Rigathi Gachagua alilete kura kwa kikapu, lazima aheshimiwe kama mtoto wa Mount Kenya kwa sababu sisi ni watu wa heshima. Na niwakumbushe, ukisoma Biblia Exodus 19:12, mlima iguzagwi na mlima ikiguzwa inatoaga moto.
Nahitaji nijue kwamba labda kwa kauli yako, je, seneti sasa tunangoja kwamba ikaweza kujadili sasa ile ambayo ni bunge la kitaifa iliweza kufanya kile ambacho ilihitajika ifanye. Seneti, labda utaambia nini wale ambao ni wabunge kwenye seneti?
Sisi nataka kuomba seneti yetu kwa sababu ni hapa house ya kwamba pia sisi watu wa Nakuru hatuna imani na wao kabisa, kwa sababu wale watu ni kama wamehongwa, wale watu ni kama mikola. Jinsi ambavyo tuliona bunge ikifanya jana, ni watu ambao wambatiwa pesa. Kwa hivyo hatuna imani na senate. Hata saa hizi tumegoja Mungu ashuke atushikilie wana Kenya na asikie deputy wetu Rigathi Gachagua. Hatuna imani na senate. Hope yetu sasa iko katika mwananchi na kwa mahakama.
Na nahitaji niulize swali la mwisho, maana ni itaingia kwenye historia kwamba yule ambaye ni naibu rais ameweza kung'atuliwa mamlakani. Je, siasa za Kenya zitakaa vipi kuanzia sasa kulingana nawe kama Mkenya?
Kutoka sasa siasa za Kenya zimebadilika kwa sababu mlima imeguzwa, na nimwambia mlima haiguzagwi. Kutoka sasa siasa imebadilika. Sasa kila watu wajipange, na sisi tunauliza deputy president Rigathi Gachagua, utafute chama yako na 2027 sisi tunataka usimame kiti ya rais, na tubanduki. Watu wa Nakuru tuko sawa na tuko hapo, na tuna imani moja ya kwamba tunarudia mara ingine kuva dereva kuva Makanga, kuva dereva kuva Makanga.
Shukrani sana. Wewe labda kauli yako ni ipi kwa ufupi sana?
Asante sana, nashukuru pia kwa sababu ya siku ya leo, lakini jambo ambalo ningependa kusema ni ya kwamba wale ambao ni waombaji wazidi kuiombea taifa la Kenya na wazidi kuombea viongozi wetu, kwa sababu mambo ambayo yanatendeka sio mambo ya kufurahisha. Tena niwakumbusha kitu kimoja ya kwamba amani ni kitu ya muhimu, maana hatuwezi kufanya biashara pasipokuwa na amani katika taifa la Kenya. Na niambie seneti yetu ya kwamba waangalie hayo mambo ambayo deputy president amestakiwa nayo, waangalie kwa makini sana na wachunguze ukweli wa maneno hayo, kwa sababu ni makosa kubwa sana wakati ambao unalibikiziwa mambo ambao haujayafanya na unalazimishwa kuyakubali. Ni makosa kubwa sana. Na ya mwisho ni kusema ya kwamba amani katika taifa la Kenya ni kitu ya muhimu. Na rais wetu, tafadhali, wewe ni mtu wa kanisa pamoja na deputy wako na pia wake wenyu ni waombaji. Yale maombi yalikuweka kwenye usukani wa uongozi wa taifa la Kenya, pia hayo maombi yanaweza kuteremsha chini. Asante
sana. Nizungumze na mamangu hapa, labda wewe kauli yako ni ipi na uliweza kutosheka na kile ambacho bunge la kitaifa liliweza kufanya hapo jana?
Hapana, sijatosheka. Hata ninahuzunika sana. Na ninashindwa hii Kenya tunaishi, hii ni Kenya ya namna gani? Watu wanawezaje kuhongwa waende kwa bunge? Imagine wa pitch deputy wetu wa Kenya mwenye tulichagua pamoja na rais wetu. Kwa nini rais umenyamaza? Rais, ukumbuke bado natuhitaji 2027. Ni sisi bado utakuta. Hata huyo mwenye utachagua bado ni sisi, tutamuona tuone ni nani umechagua na tutakupitisha kwa sababu ya deputy mwenye utachagua. Kabisa unataka kutoa mtoto wetu wa mlima. Sisi tunahusika sana. Kama mimi nasikia vibaya sana nikikumbuka vile nilirauka mapema. Mimi nilikuchagua kwa sababu ya Rigathi Gachagua, kwa sababu ni mtoto wetu. Tafadhali tu president, na kuomba tu penye huko, tafadhali tu, kama Gachagua amekukosea msamehe tu na ujitokeze uongee neno tusikie.
Na bunge la kitaifa lishafanya mambo yake na sasa tunangoja seneti, na labda iwapo seneti itafanya vile kuna mahakama. Labda jambo moja ama neno moja kwa seneti.
Seneti, ninawaomba tafadhali tu, mimi najua kuna chenye mnapewa chini. Ninaomba tu mkule, lakini Tafadhali muokoe mtoto wetu. Tafadhali.
Thank you.
Shukran. Labda kwa ajili ya wakati mtaniruhusu tu nitamatishe, maana tuko live on air. Hivyo basi, Fred, remember those are sentiments from locals here in Nakuru County, of course, expressing their dissatisfaction with what happened yesterday. Remember, it is a historic vote that attained to that threshold of 281 voters, or rather member of parliament who voted to have a deputy president Gachagua impeached. And so it's a matter of a wait and see, because this is a matter that will again be discussed in the Senate. So all eyes are set on the Senate to see whether they will still vote against the impeachment of the deputy president Gachagua. Allow me just to get to hear more views from Nakurians in regards to this. As you can see, they quite have a lot to speak about in regards to the impeachment of deputy president. Them feeling that it is one of their own who was given an opportunity to lead, or rather to be the second in command in this particular county, or rather country that bears the name Kenya. So, Fred, that is all I have, or rather we have from Nakuru County. I will be speaking further, and of course I will maybe prepare more news in our 7 and 9 news bulletin. Over to you, Fred. My name is Chichi Josephine.
Thank you, Chichi. Chichi Josephine coming to us live from Nakuru County, Nakuru town to be specific, and quite a crowd there, just giving their views with regard to the impeachment of the deputy president that took place last night at the National Assembly. 281 members of the National Assembly in total voting yes, 44 voting no, and 1 abstention, effectively impeaching the deputy president. Of course, the matter goes before the Senate and eventually, probably beyond that, the judiciary. Well, this is Wednesday, so let's...
Sabania.
Yeah, sure.
Hey.
Yeah.